the people than in the conference rooms of any elite.
Sam Seder.
They are unanimous in their hate for me, and I welcome their hatred.
We must guard against the acquisition of unwarranted influence, whether sought or unsought, by the military-industrial complex.
The Majority Report with Sam Seder.
Ever get the feeling you've been cheated?
It is Thursday, January 15th, 2026. My name is Emma Vigeland, in for Sam Seder, and this is the 5-time award-winning Majority Report. We are broadcasting live steps from the industrially ravaged Gowanus Canal in the heartland of America, downtown Brooklyn, USA. On the program today, Amed Khan will be with us to discuss Israel's aid blockade in Gaza. And later in the show, Molly White joins us again to discuss the rise of techno-oligarchy. Techno-oligarchy. That's better. Techno-oligarchy. It's a great term. I just can't say it. Under Trump 2.0. Also on the program, Trump threatens to invoke the Insurrection Act after protests in Minneapolis swell following another ICE shooting, this time a Venezuelan immigrant in the leg. Governor Tim Walz urges Minnesotans to document ICE abuses for future prosecution. Maine officials warn residents that ICE raids against the Somali community are coming soon in the state. Trump indefinitely suspends immigrant visas from 75 countries based on whether or not they're likely to need public assistance. You know, like the welfare queen ones, right? That's subtle. U.S. personnel are evacuated from their posts near Iran, signaling a potential bombing campaign. The death toll from protests in Iran continues to rise, ranging from 2,000 to 3,500 killed. A Quinnipiac poll finds that 70% of Americans oppose U.S. military involvement in Iran. Trump calls Venezuelan interim president Delcy Rodriguez a terrific person. Somebody check on Maria Corina Machado. She is wiping her tears with that Nobel Peace Prize.
Oh, we're going to meet, but we're going to keep it to basics.
Basics meaning give me the award and leave.
Yeah, basics is you're welcome. For all I've already done for you.
The U.S. will contract private military personnel, aka mercenaries, in Venezuela to protect the oil instead of U.S. troops. So that's a payday for Trump's buddies. Apparently, one Eric Prince is circling. A 3-judge appeals court panel sides against Mahmoud Khalil, opening the door to his rearrest. The 2 judges responsible, Republican appointees. Shocker. Germany, Sweden, Canada, other NATO countries send troops to Greenland due to Trump's threats. And lastly, David Plouffe, the Harris campaign genius behind their disastrous pivot to the center, writes in the New York Times that Democratic candidates should say Schumer and Jeffries should step down. All this and more on today's Majority Report. Didn't name Schumer and Jeffries in the piece, but it's over. It's over. I mean, I don't think for Jeffries it is, unfortunately. Lots of members of the House still sticking behind him. But if David Plouffe is writing in the New York Times, Democrats abandon ship on this leadership, at least rhetorically. Oh, buddy.
I mean,
oh, buddy.
Why do they think that they can just proceed or lead through failure after failure and continue leading the party? Like Pramila Jayapal, when she came on our show, said, like, I feel some sense of obligation to respond to a loss with some sense of accountability at the
Yeah.
top. And she's like a leader of a small caucus. The party leaders need to step down. There's in other countries, that's just something that happens. Like
Parliamentary countries, if you lose an election, you have leadership changes almost certainly often.
look at how many people have led the Tories in the past
I know.
5 years.
Well, I mean, and even look at the Republicans and their leadership turnover, and that has not affected them electorally at all.
It's good to do, actually.
Yes.
To get a new face in there that people don't hate.
Right.
Because guess what? The political system isn't delivering for people. So longevity is a bad thing if you're leading the
And we're
parties.
seeing a record number of people identifying as independent, fleeing both the Democratic and Republican parties. But let's turn to Minnesota. Overnight, intense protests raged in Minneapolis. There was another ICE shooting. Thankfully, it appears like he is now in stable condition, but this was a Venezuelan immigrant. There was an interaction at a traffic stop with an ICE agent who shot him. The ICE agent and the Department of Homeland Security is claiming that he was swinging a shovel. We'll see what the evidence
don't
shows.
believe any of that stuff. It's almost like, they're going to say a lot of things because they're defending murderers.
And with all of this kind of community uprising and people in Minneapolis and Minnesota standing to protect their neighbors, the Trump administration is frothing at the mouth to try to find a reason to invoke the Insurrection Act. Fascists need to exaggerate the scale of protests and drum up the fear in order to justify their repression. Trump's been doing this for years, and throughout this entire second term in particular, talking about how blue cities are war zones, playing up the threat so that he can crack down on these areas. And they're just begging for a pretext to be able to do this. A reminder that the Insurrection Act was last used, I think, in the early 90s by George H.W. Bush in response to the riots after the police killing or beating of Rodney King. But it had also previously been used during the civil rights movement, or during that era, when it was Eisenhower and JFK trying to using the Insurrection Act to enforce what the courts ordering desegregation of parts of the South, schools in the South. So normally the U.S. military is not supposed to be used on American citizens. That's the Posse Comitatus Act. But invoking the Insurrection Act suspends that rule. And the Trump administration has been circling around this big red button to use the military against U.S. civilians for years at this point. And once again, he truthed it out last night. Here we go. If the corrupt politicians of Minnesota don't obey the law and stop the professional agitators and insurrectionists from attacking the patriots of ICE who are only trying to do their job, I will institute the Insurrection Act, which many presidents have done before me, and quickly put an end to the travesty that is taking place in that once great state. Thank you for your attention to this matter. Why does he keep ending his truths with "thank you for your attention to this matter"? Like he's sending out an email blast at some sort of startup. But anyway, they're trying to create this pretext. They're trying to make it so that the Trump administration can use Minneapolis as a testing ground for further authoritarian actions, because as our more progressive members like Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and Ilhan Omar have been saying publicly, ICE is being used as an anti-civilian force by the Trump administration. Immigrants are on the front lines, but it's not just immigrants. Of course.
I mean, who just got shot in the face?
Renee Good, shot in the face, murdered by ICE. And here's another example of ICE's abuses. This is a legal observer speaking about her experience less than a week after the killing of Renee Good. They were, this legal observer and another individual were observing ICE, which is a protected First Amendment action. And she held a press conference speaking about, her name's Patty O'Keefe, what happened when she was arrested and detained by ICE.
My name is Patty O'Keefe. On Sunday, this past Sunday, January 11th, myself and my good friend Brandon Seguenza were violently arrested and detained by ICE. During that encounter, we had an ICE agent spray pepper spray into our windshield vent. They then broke our windows, dragged us out of our vehicles, handcuffed us, and put us in separate cars. On the way over to the Whipple Detention Center, I was taunted, mocked. Also, on that same ride, one of the agents said that you guys got to stop obstructing us. That's why that lesbian bitch is dead. Speaking about Renee Good. I think it's important, though, that people know that this is what agents are saying. When we got to the detention
Can you pause
center,
it for a sec?
we saw...
I just want to emphasize that point. I know that it's been something I've been pushing on the show here, but it's quite immensely clear that Jonathan Ross, the agent who murdered Renee Good, was triggered and enraged by both the women that were speaking to him being outspoken, but the fact that they were clearly in a same-sex relationship. And when you look at the characteristics of fascist movements, you see that it's this promise of a national renewal, really, and pride in the face of humiliations that are brought by the hand of a marginalized group, usually minority groups, immigrants in this country, but also it branches off in a bunch of different directions. And fascism always has a misogynistic, hyper-masculine undertone, led by a strongman figurehead that channels that kind of energy. And you crack down on leftists, minority groups, but also women and their rights. And you see that this administration looks at Viktor Orban's model for governance as something that they seek to emulate, and his right-wing vision very much includes a domesticated female barefoot in the kitchen, and that is what they're talking about here. So if there was a good faith reading of this murder, it would be investigated as a hate crime as well as manslaughter / second degree murder, basically. Keep going.
Got to the detention center, we saw probably about 100 people in holding cells. We heard screaming, crying, just visceral agony from many of the people who were there. You know, someone saying, let me go, let me go, let me go, please let me go, begging. We heard a child crying. My friend Brandon was brought into another room for questioning, where he was offered money or legal protection for any undocumented family members that he might have in exchange for names of other undocumented people or names of protest organizers, a bribe, essentially. And another person in his cell, a Hispanic man, was offered that same deal. They both said no. I had a short conversation with a Border Patrol agent who, you know, was wondering why we were here, why we were so passionate about this. And at the end of it, he goes, you know, I think, you know, I kind of just think that we thought all you guys are crazy, right? And so you have people that are desensitized or okay with dehumanization, and also think that people that are out here trying to defend their neighbors are crazy. And that's a really dangerous combination, and I think that is coming across in the way that we see that ICE officers are conducting themselves with people across the city. So I am just one example of many. I luckily got to come home from that detention center, and most of the people there did not. This is craziness, and it needs to come to an end.
Go ahead, Matt.
I don't know if it was Will or Felix from Chapo Trapos, but they called ICE agents a revolt of the unemployable against the unemployed. And that's the real issue there. When you hear her say that thing, we thought you all were crazy. These are scared men whose fathers failed, and the only thing that they understand how to give to the world is violence. That's a broken man. Every one of those guys, and they're organized now by the government.
There have been some data leaks that I've seen media organizations being slow to verify. I think that there's a chill here, but unverified information here. But data leaks potentially showing that there are Proud Boys in these ranks, which is stuff that, of course, we already knew. But I'm waiting for confirmation to fully confirm that, of course.
It's enough to me for Jonathan Ross to be arguing with his family about whether the Proud Boys were good or not.
And white supremacy more broadly on Facebook. That was the nature also of that debate.
Same thing.
The American Immigration Council put out a report just to speak to what she's saying about the detentions, and I can't even imagine what the conditions are like in there. But we know that there are reports of sexual abuse. We know that last year was the deadliest year for people in ICE detention. Over 50 people that we know of that have died in ICE detention. And this same report just has some of these staggering statistics here that the changes in federal law here and the arrest practices has resulted in per the American Immigration Council, a 2,450% increase in the number of people with no criminal record held in ICE detention on any given day. Also, when you look at the amount of money that's being shuttled over for ICE detention, you see that ICE has an average annual budget of around $15 billion over the next 4 years for detention alone. And when you look at the Federal Bureau of Prisons, their budget for the entire federal prison system is $9 billion. ICE detention is dwarfing the entire federal prison system from a budgetary standpoint. And we're still being like, should we call these concentration camps?
That was co-signed by the Democrats last year. Chuck Schumer, thanks for passing that into law. And yeah, the logic about concentration camps is if you don't stop them soon enough, they'll become death camps. And every one of these ICE agents will absolutely staff death camps too. And if they decide we're not going after immigrants, but we're going after gay people now, they're all up for that too. We're we're on the same planet that had the Nazis. We're in the same country that had Jim Crow for decades and decades and had a media that called itself free that both sides did. And
the same country that committed genocide against the Native Americans.
Indian Removal Act.
The Whipple Detention Center is on the same place of the concentration camp of the Dakota that I put on screen from 1862.
Is that the Fort Snelling one that I was? Okay, so that's relevant here because just this other horrifying facet to this story is that as ICE is terrorizing Minneapolis, there's now, it's been confirmed by the Oglala Sioux tribe that at least 3 tribal members have been arrested in Minneapolis. Apparently, ICE rounded up some homeless men living under a bridge in Minneapolis, and they took 3 to 4 members of the Oglala Sioux tribe. There's around 50,000 indigenous Americans that live in Minneapolis. And to Matt's point, they're reportedly being detained at this ICE facility set up in Fort Snelling, South Dakota, which was the site of the concentration camp for indigenous people in the 1860s, housing them there. The image that Matt has shown on screen a few times. Here it is. All right, well, we'll show it in a second, but you can see how, there it is, this larger image. I mean, this is the model of concentration camps around the globe.
If you've flown into Minneapolis Airport and when you go over the water, that's the same. That's the Mississippi River right there.
In the memoriam about this story sent to Department of Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem, the president, Frank Starr, comes out, release a statement about basically the tribe members being snatched up by ICE. In this memorandum, Starr comes out, said that when the nation reached out to the agency, DHS, it was provided with only the first names of the men. Homeland Security refused to release more information unless the tribe, quote, entered into an immigration agreement with ICE. DHS did not immediately respond to a request for comment Tuesday evening. Starr comes out, said the tribe has no plans to enter an agreement with ICE. They're holding, or attempting to, hold multiple members of the Oglala Sioux tribe hostage unless the tribe agrees to participate in ICE activities.
To accept that those men are, or whoever's detained as, are illegal aliens despite being indigenous Americans.
And but they're indigenous, but that doesn't matter because this is not about this is not about immigration. This is a white supremacist ethnic cleansing project. Let me repeat that. This is an ethnic cleansing project based on white supremacy. And this is abundantly clear in an experience from another indigenous American. This is a Red Lake descendant. He's 20 years old, named Jose Roberto Ramirez. His mother is a Red Lake tribal member. And this is a short video here speaking about their experience in Native Americans being harassed and detained by ICE in and around Minneapolis.
Just said, we are Native, we're Native American, we are U.S. citizens, and it just didn't matter.
You help us! We're citizens! Beto, get your ID! Okay! Okay! Stop! Oh! Okay, Beto! Ow! Beto!
Can you explain what happened last week?
Yeah, this is literally just the day before when Renee Good got shot. I was just freaked out. Like, they don't want to stop nowhere where nobody would see, you know. It felt like I was getting kidnapped. Like they literally rushed me out of my aunt's car and handcuffed me, threw me in their car, and tried to keep me down, put my hoodie up. And they don't even care if you got your identification. They'll take you. Like, they're just evil people. I didn't think I had nothing to worry about because I was a U.S. citizen. You know, I'm half Mexican, half Native. You know, that didn't matter though to them.
How does it feel to be stopped by federal immigration agents as a Native American?
We thought we were safe. You are from here. We are Native. We are the original. Don't be scared. They can't do anything. Can't touch us. We are untouchable. Seeing what had happened to us and to my nephew, we are a nobody to these agents. About a month prior, I was driving over here and I was coming up to a stop. And I didn't know it was ICE agents, and they were. And they started yelling, and I rolled my window a little, and I said, what? And he said, coming for you. And I said, I'm Native American. And he says, yeah, you're next. Any immigrant, I can imagine the fear that they are living currently.
I just wanted to get those two quotes kind of to be the pillars of our segment on this morning, today. Is the gratuitous comment by the ICE agent about Renee Good being a lesbian, and then the very telling comment recounted by that woman of the ICE agent saying, "You're next," to Native Americans. Because I think that colors things pretty clearly.
I mean, it is frankly and straightforwardly and objectively a white supremacist, white nationalist movement. And that includes all the Latino guys that are doing it too. They're Nazis as well. Well, look at your history of South America. Like, some people seem confused by that. Like, Stephen Crowder, I think, got sued over something like that. Yeah, like Latino guys that join ICE, they're Nazis too.
In a moment, we'll be speaking to Amed Khan. Quick break, and we will be right back with you. We are back, and we are joined now by Amed Khan, human rights advocate, political activist, who, through the Amed Khan Foundation, has purchased and delivered emergency child nutrition throughout the genocide in Gaza. Amed, thank you so much for coming on the show today.
Thanks so much, Emma. Thanks for having me on. I really appreciate it.
Of course. A week or two ago, a few weeks ago, the Israeli government announced that they are banning dozens of international NGOs, aid groups from operating in Gaza and the West Bank. It basically gives Israel broad authority to ban whatever organizations they say are affiliated with terrorists or sympathetic to the Palestinian cause, what have you. Just your reaction to that, because we're also continuing to see horror stories on the ground of children freezing to death, for example, and there still being a complete lack of aid for Palestinians in the Gaza Strip despite this so-called ceasefire.
Yeah, I mean, the purpose is, obviously you've probably seen the names. I mean, it's basically the gold standard of international NGOs, CARE, Save the Children, MSF. There are a variety of reasons for the ban. One of the main ones is they have asked all the NGOs to provide all details for all staff, which obviously is a dangerous thing given the number of humanitarian aid workers that have been killed over the last 2.5 years. There are other reasons, of course, also. The aid organizations don't advocate as they usually do. And the reason for that is they're worried about being banned. So if one aid organization makes a negative statement about something that is based in fact and is 100% true, they risk getting on the Israeli authorities' bad side and then losing the ability to operate. I mean, there's two facets to this. There's the ability to bring stuff into Israel and then into Gaza, sort of through Israel. And then the ability to operate within Gaza itself. So you can lose the ability to bring stuff in, then you lose the ability to operate, and then you really have, it's the people are the one that suffer.
Can you explain on what that process is like? Because the underlying framework here, which it's amazing to me that people don't think about this more, is just like, how can Israel ban aid groups and aid from getting into Gaza and the West Bank? So perhaps people can go to that second place in their thought process and go, because Israel controls the West Bank and Gaza, right? I mean, this is just important, I think, for people to ponder. But the fact that you have to go through Israel is really important here. What is that process like? How do you even get into Gaza? And what is the framework for negotiating with the Israeli authorities to get in?
So there are a variety of procedures. This, first and foremost, this is wholly unprecedented in the history of humanitarian assistance. For example, in Sudan in the war in the 90s, the Sudanese government never banned NGOs, even that were operating with the SPLA, that were fighting against Sudan. So, this is something that no one's ever seen. And, I've delivered, let's say, pediatric ventilators to the frontline hospitals in Ukraine, 10 miles from the Russian border, no problem. Hospitals that have been blown up. Now, so in Israel, it's completely different. They control all borders. They control all access. So even if you were to purchase something in Egypt, for example, it would need to go through Israeli authority. Now, the process for getting items approved is it goes through a system called UN 2720, and that's a United Nations system. You submit your packing list, your invoice, the items, where the items are from, what the items are from, what the items are supposed to do, and where they are going. And where they're going is relevant with regard to the NGOs. So, for example, today, if I want to send something to MSF, it's probably not going to happen. It's not going to be approved because we're somewhere into the 60-day process for NGOs complying or being banned, right? So, it's a multi-pronged process. It's a long process. If you have 4 or 5 hours, I could run you through the whole process. And, I tell people sometimes that if I told people all my stories, they actually would never believe me.
Well, how about one? How about
Well,
one that stands out to you? I mean, just to
they're all insane.
Yeah.
They're all insane. You know, sort of. I've told this story about medicines, you know, pediatric medicines that are for children that have been suffering for 2 years, and you apply, you submit the applications. This is before anything enters the country. So you have to buy the items because the vendor generally can't prepare a packing list without you buying it. So you've bought it, but you don't have any guarantee that it's actually going to be approved. So you may have bought it and then you're just sitting on it. And that's a process. That's very, you know, for me, it's okay because it's, you know, my money. So I don't mind that process. Of course, it's horrible, but nonprofits, international nonprofits, can't explain that to their donors or their board that we've purchased all these medicines and now we're sitting on them. They're sitting in warehouses. It's, you know, it belies any sort of sane procedure. So ultimately, what we're saying is there really is no system, like it doesn't exist. You purchase it. If you get approval, you then arrange shipping. You enter, if you're flying, it's to Ben Gurion in Tel Aviv. If you're shipping by ship, it's Ashdod port in Israel. Then again, customs will come through and look through the stuff. You'll go through a scanner again, and that could be 7 days, 10 days. Then you arrange transport to the border, in through Kerem Shalom. Then you actually have to offload the truck. Then you have to put it through a tunnel that gets onto the Palestinian side. Then you have to unload the truck, and then you wait for a green light to move. And obviously during the ceasefire, or the so-called ceasefire, it's gotten a bit easier than when they were actually bombing the trucks. But it's still a misery.
And you mentioned Egypt there. The process for getting aid through the Rafah crossing, the southern border of the Gaza Strip that borders Egypt, is that a separate process, or still we're looking at Israeli?
Runs through Israel. Everything runs through Israel. So there's no Rafah, Egypt into Gaza. That doesn't exist. They blew that up. And you know, there's been talk about it reopening for people on a one-way trip exiting, you know, which is ultimately, since October 8th, the end game of this process has been the ethnic cleansing of Gaza. And when I would tell people this October 15th or October 16th, they looked at me like I was from the moon. And I think maybe now they're coming around to that realization. I don't know how it's taken so long, because the Israelis basically say this on a daily basis. You know, I don't know why we wouldn't just listen to them.
Yes, it was quite clear on October 8th, to your point. And now it's in many ways too late for so many people. Just the scale, then, if you could talk a little bit about what you saw there and what maybe isn't reported in Western news about what it even is like to see the totality of this destruction. Still, I believe, gets underplayed quite a bit here in the United States.
Well, of course, since day one, they've banned international journalists, right? Like, there's not one international journalist that's been into Gaza on their own, talking to people, talking to children, talking to the elderly. Tell me about your life for the 2 years. They did a wonderful job of dehumanizing Palestinians. They also killed Palestinian journalists. So they've either dehumanized the Palestinians so no one ever believes them, even though there are thousands of hours of video of this very thing. So every aspect of it is underplayed. You can't get your head around. It's actually beyond human comprehension. There are 2.2 million people that suffered like no people on earth have ever suffered. And certainly I've seen suffering all over the world, but there is no place that has F-15s, F-16s, F-35s, Apache attack helicopters, unlimited drones, tanks, artillery, snipers firing 24/7 in all directions. And every single person has lost an immediate family member. Every single person has lost people they know for years. And so you are living in constant fear. And that fear hasn't gone away with the ceasefire because, you know, from time to time, there will be an airstrike, and almost every day people die, innocent people, and many of them are children. So to capture that trauma, to live through that, it's really impossible to get your head around. And I've only spent a few nights in Gaza during the genocide, but I can tell you each night I remember every aspect of each night, because when they drop 500-pound bombs, it's called the GBU-39 or the GBU-54, the American bombs, everything shakes, including your bones. And you know another one's coming, and you're hearing screaming in the distance, and you can I've been around this stuff a lot, and so I know the distances, and you just can't get your head around that this is what they're putting people through. And it's overnight, generally. They drop the big bombs overnight. So maybe you just fell asleep, and maybe you're in that sort of like starting to dream, and all of a sudden they start dropping. And, in the morning, when they come to you, they said, "Did you enjoy the music last night?" That's our night. And you can't get your head around people living through that for 2 years with nowhere to go, no safe place, and not to mention the weather, the rain. You're not in your home because all your homes are destroyed. You're in a tent with how many people in a tent, and the tent stinks, and no water sanitation, nothing. It's so every aspect of it is, if you can figure out what's the worst thing a human being can go through, then that's it.
You have a background in democratic politics, and I'm wondering if you could expand on that a little bit, because obviously your work and what the Biden administration engaged in midwifing this genocide, being as complicit as the Trump administration,
if not more,
must have been quite like an enlightening moment for you as somebody who has done this kind of humanitarian work. Speak a little bit about your process of kind of speaking out publicly against the Biden administration and distancing yourself from that, despite your past donations to the campaign.
Yeah, it's obviously they were horrible, and it was very, very clear. I actually was invited to a donor meeting, I suppose October 16th or 17th, that occurred, in the old executive office building and the bowling alley with donors, and there were senior White House officials there. And I spoke once because I'd actually just returned from Rafah, and I just said what I saw, and I said I hope everyone will remember that there are 1.2 million children there. They didn't vote for Hamas in 2005 because they weren't alive, and in the process, if what the Israelis are trying to do is get Hamas, what I've seen in the 6 days so far is not it. And I hope someone will get some sense or bring some sense into this. And within another week or two, well, it was clear to me that day it wasn't going to happen. So another week or two, and then I was done with them. I was just like, look, these guys are genocidal maniacs. I want no part of it. I mean, I've never been a fan of democratic American foreign policy. I mean, these people are all horrible failures, right? Like the Obama administration was horrible, and all these people just they don't get new jobs. They don't go anywhere else. They just work for democratic foreign policy. They never bring in any new people, and they're always terrible, and they sort of fail up, and you can't figure out how these people keep getting promoted. And so, foreign policy was never the reason that I was ever supportive of any Democrats, because they're just not good at it, right? They just literally have no idea what they're doing.
Did you get any reaction from certain members of the Biden team that struck you?
No, it was all talking points. We care. We're doing everything we can. We're working hard to bring peace. We want peace, and it's all nonsense. They're just blowing smoke, and you knew it. I mean, I knew it. I've been around. I mean, I knew it was obvious. I mean, I knew they weren't up to the task to begin with. But as an eternal optimist, there's always hope. But I was done within a couple of weeks, no, it was always nonsense. And a lot of the other donors were like, we still like him. And I was like, I said very clearly, all the fellow donors, and they all know that I told them this, he's not going to win. My opinion is he's not going to win because of this. People, maybe they won't vote for Trump, but they're not going to vote. And that was just that's literally November, December of 23. And they're like, you don't know what you're talking about. I'm like, okay, we'll see.
We unfortunately have seen, the recent news too, I'm wondering if you could give your perspective on this, like, the yellow line right now, where Israel has basically taken control of more than 50% of the Gaza Strip. In terms of like that, the ethnic cleansing campaign there, they're concentrating the Palestinians closer and closer to the sea, in smaller and smaller parts of the land. People are, again, children are freezing to death in tents due to the intensity of the rains in the winter. And Israel, as you mentioned, keeps bombing the tents despite the ceasefire. They violated the ceasefire over 1,000 times since it was so, implemented. They're doing the same thing, of course, in Lebanon. But what that's like to have all of these people continue to be concentrated in smaller parcels. As somebody who's been to Gaza a few times, what does that look like?
It's a horror. Gaza is the size of Las Vegas or Philadelphia, has a very, 2.2 million people. That's a serious population density. Now, if you take 50, 60%, 70% of that land out of the picture, it's just people on top of each other.
Although we should say that maybe, there's hundreds of thousands that are unaccounted for as well. So there's also that population decrease.
Sadly, there are less people. There are not 2.2 or 2.3 million people there anymore. That's for sure. But, the reality is you see rubble all day. A striking thing to me was, Ukraine is the front line of Ukraine is 800 miles long. It's a country that's bigger than Texas, but there's more rubble in Gaza than there is in Ukraine. Because basically you have medium-sized apartment buildings and they're all flat. And the aspects of this are beyond belief. The toxins in the groundwater, the toxins in the air from destroyed buildings, sort of the stuff that comes out of the cement when they're blown up, the toxins from the munitions. Nobody even knows some of these bombs that they're dropping and what happens. There's unexploded ordinances. So you are people that are maybe 15 in a tent, maybe a bunch of kids, like orphanages operate in tents. What is that? It's just absolute misery, getting worse and worse. And it's literally it's a plan. They're very good at it. They know what they're doing. Just make life as miserable as possible. And then one day they open the door and, only maybe the very elderly don't want to leave, and that's fine with them because they're not going to really bother them. And they clear the place out. And that's been the plan from day one. And they've had to modify, they've had to work around. Sometimes, like every 3 or 4 months, the Biden administration would wake up and say, we're facilitating a genocide. Maybe we shouldn't. And it's my belief that President Trump himself probably put an end to the nonstop airstrikes because he didn't like the images of little kids being blown apart. And there was no stopping that. There's no way you could stop the video of that. It was always going to come out no matter what, by whatever means. It basically was a fast genocide, and now it's a slow genocide, right? So they're killing people slowly. They're in a real world. If you had a ceasefire, you would surge medical, you would surge building materials to get the hospitals back up and running. You would surge the medicines that are needed. There are people with cancer. There are no cancer drugs. There are kids who need prosthetics. There are no prosthetics. On and on and on. All those things are the things that you would do day one of a ceasefire. Hasn't happened. Sure, they probably can point to numbers that are higher than, during the active genocide before the ceasefire, but it's really a drop in the bucket. And I know what I send, and I feel what I send is a drop in the bucket because I speak with all the hospitals, et cetera, and I know what they have and they don't have. And you go to your local hospital in whatever town you live in, and you walk through the hospital and you see all sorts of equipment, right? If you go to a hospital in Gaza, you literally find nothing. You find babies there and they can barely breathe because they were born into this situation, and who knows what their mother was exposed to. And there's no pediatric ventilator. There's no pediatric monitor. There are none of the things that they had before that they need now, and they need more than ever, right? And so none of the people involved are really care about people, I guess, when it comes down to it. Like, do they really care about the people? It's all like optics and maybe, sort of press releases and statements, and we're working, and it's really beyond belief.
Lastly, I know that you were an executive producer on the film The Voice of Hind Rajab, and you were involved in helping Hind's mother and family evacuate from Gaza. Can you just speak a little bit about that film, how people can support it, how people can support your work? And then if you have any message perhaps that Hind's family would like to relay, given, how the murder of her has kind of been a rallying cry for Palestinian support throughout the world.
Hind's mom Wissam is great. She's so strong, and I talk to her almost every day. Her message essentially is, my daughter wasn't the only one. For me, it's very painful. We happen to have the recordings of my daughter. So many other children, the recordings aren't there. Nobody came for Hind. What kind of world is this? It's not too late to come and be present and be there for the remaining 1 million, 1.1 million, 1.2 million children. That's what she tries and stress. And I tell her to, take it easy, but she takes it very, very seriously, that she feels that she's been given a platform. The film itself, I thought it was important to be involved with, because this is the sort of thing I do. I kind of go and try to rescue children, right? Like from dangerous places. And I wasn't there then. And the people who are heroes who tried to be there were killed. So then in terms of the evacuation, a friend of mine sent me something from social media. Brad Pitt is one of the executive producers, and says, why doesn't Brad Pitt fly his plane to Gaza and evacuate the family? And someone said to me, well, you're sort of like the real life guy, so you should go evacuate them. And that was a long, very long process. The Israelis didn't make it easy at all. And actually we had a assist from the White House, of all places. So it keeps my hope alive that individuals do care about individuals. And that really, they actually helped bring it to the finish line in terms of the evacuation. When we got the family out, there were 9 members of the family, including her mother. And I would just say to people, just keep engaged and keep fighting. And, our representation sucks, right? Like there's almost nobody that speaks to what we need and what has to happen. And I think the only way to do that is increase our engagement with our elected representatives. And I think they, most of them need to go. And we need to find people willing to take up the mantle to speak to what's important. Why can't we just care about, children being safe? Why is that? How is that political? And and the lies, we need to find people who are willing to stand up to the lies. I remember somebody texted me that they're using children as human shields. I said, I don't know I really don't know who sent you those talking points, but I'm there. There's no such thing. There's no mother who's handing over her kids to stand in front of, some Hamas rocket or something. That doesn't exist. There's no such thing. You believed in this dehumanization that you think some mother would do that. So I could go on and on, but I think we just have to be out there and more effective. For me, I know what I'm doing, and I get the stuff done. I think people can support any of the big NGOs. They're all doing as well as they possibly can do. But it's not about the NGOs. It's really about getting the people of Gaza what they need. So whatever it takes, that's really the purpose of everything all of us do. And I'm sure any of the NGOs would happily be banned if there was someone else or some other organization to deliver to the people what they need. I mean, there's so many heroes in Gaza. Everybody, the truck drivers, every single truck driver, every time they get behind the wheel, they're taking their life in their own hands. But they have a mission to deliver from point A to point B. And all the people that unload the trucks and then get the thing, and distributions, and the doctors, nurses. It's quite amazing. It blows me away. I don't know in America how we would respond to something like this. But the people in Gaza sure are heroes.
Well, Ahmed Khan, really appreciate your time today. Thank you so much. And we will put a link to the relevant links that you sent over to us in our episode and YouTube descriptions. Appreciate your time today. Thanks so much.
Thanks so much, Emma. Talk to you soon.
Bye. Quick break. And when we come back, we will be joined by Molly White of the excellent newsletter Citation Needed to talk about the rise of technoligarchy. Getting close, figuring out how to say it. Be right back. We are back, and we are joined once again by a friend of the show, Molly White, software engineer, technology researcher, cryptocurrency critic, whose awesome newsletter is called Citation Needed. You should check it out. Molly, thanks so much for coming on the show.
Thanks for having me back.
Of course. It's great to see you. And I really, really enjoyed your recent piece, kind of like almost like a looking back at the rise of cryptocurrency and the economy that came with it over the past 4 or 5 years. It's called The Year of Technoligarchy. I did it. I nailed it this time. Which is, I mean, a great way to refer to it as, but you kind of track from 2021 to 2025. You say the year of 2021 is the year of hype with all the NFTs and the Bored Apes and stuff like that. Then the collapse, you got Sam Bankman-Fried, the FTX falling apart. You got the cleanup, that's 2023. And then grievance 2024, when they poured all this money into super PACs and were trying to legitimize cryptocurrency. And then last year, technoligarchy, Trump kind of cementing that. So I guess just explain your kind of thesis about this overall and how things have tracked from 2021 to the year of technoligarchy 2025.
Yeah, I mean, around the new year, I was sort of reflecting on the time that I've been writing about cryptocurrency, which has been since 2021. And the fact that every year seems to be totally different. At first it was a lot of writing about Web3 and these really overblown promises and the, issues with the technology and the poor coverage of it. And then the next year it was all following bankruptcy cases and, watching as these companies exploded. Then I was, again, steeped in legal documents, watching the bankruptcies play out over the next year. And I was watching criminal cases against Sam Bankman-Fried. I was watching regulatory cases against a ton of different crypto companies. And, that was, I think, the year where people were like, crypto is dead. We've stopped seeing all these ads. We've stopped, seeing people, celebrities with NFT profile pictures. There's not many people talking about crypto anymore. It's become kind of cringe, especially the NFTs. I think that was a mistake to view crypto as dead, because what happened is they sort of retrenched during that time period, even as crypto prices were down, and they formed this political machine, raising, almost $200 million in 2024 for these crypto-focused super PACs that, their only goal was to support candidates who would sign on to the crypto agenda, in terms of, which was really focused on deregulation, changing how crypto is regulated, which regulators are in charge, and then, installing politicians who are willing to make it their focus to promote crypto and really bolster the industry. And I think 2025 was the result of that. We saw this enormous amount of pressure and influence on Congress, on the president, on regulators, thanks to all of this political spending and the political clout that these companies had established. We had people like David Sachs installed at the White House, these people who were very much part of this industry, investing in this industry, still invested in this industry in many cases, now writing the rules for this industry. And so, I think that we've seen the US government essentially become beholden to these incredibly wealthy tech oligarchs. And I think a lot of what we are watching happen now and what we saw happening last year is really directly attributable to that influence and the project that these people are really trying to advance.
Yeah, the 2024 election being dominated by crypto that's not an exaggeration to say that.
No.
I mean, you write about how Kamala Harris added that like late last minute crypto nod to her platform about, what was it about? Creating more black wealth or something like that.
Yeah, it was about supporting black men who invest in crypto, I guess. It was really bizarre.
Supporting humanity, everybody would mean the elimination of this industry. But yes, it was just, I mean, we can't get back into that. But probably even more importantly than that very stupid thing was how the money was poured into all of these races. Like, you saw it successfully take out Sherrod Brown in Ohio, that crypto money. And then you also saw Democrats like John Ossoff sign on to pro-crypto legislation as a way to stave off the war chest of the cryptocurrency super PACs. Expand a little bit about on that and how the crypto industry was able to so thoroughly corrupt our elections last cycle successfully.
Yeah, I mean, I think it was sort of a double-edged approach where, first of all, they obviously had a ton of money. There was, $200 million that they were sitting on, just, sort of holding over people's heads saying, you better get on board because we've got all of this money. We will use it to either primary you or support your opponent in the general election if you don't get on board with our agenda. There was also this huge PR campaign that was really targeted not only at the public, but at members of Congress and their campaigns to really emphasize the power of the crypto industry in terms of, essentially being kingmakers in politics, but also to advance this idea that there was this huge block of American people who were essentially single issue crypto voters. And that if you were willing to embrace crypto and to sort of add a policy plank about how you were going to, support innovation, and, there were all these ways that they were framing it, then there would be all of these people who might not otherwise vote for you, who would suddenly pour in to support you, even if maybe they were otherwise, not interested in your politics, or if they disagreed with you on other points, or maybe even if they were a member of a different party. There was this idea that there were just so many people who cared so much about crypto that they would, support any candidate who got on board. This wasn't really borne out by the data, but it was something that they were very heavily pushing. We saw, all of these quotes from, for example, Coinbase claiming that millions and millions of Americans hold crypto and therefore care deeply about it from a political standpoint. They were running their own polls where even the data that didn't support their theory was sort of massaged into these presentations that were then given to campaigns very directly, saying, look at all these voters who care so much about crypto. And I think it was fairly successful in, making candidates very concerned that if they were outspoken against crypto or even just didn't take a pro-crypto stance, they could be at risk in terms of re-election or election for the first time if they were a new candidate. And so we saw a lot of candidates on both sides of the aisle sign on to this crypto agenda, essentially by, they often tried to present it in ways that were a little bit more ambiguous about, embracing technological innovation and clarifying the regulations and things like that. But, it was pretty clear what was going on, which was that these were people who were saying, okay, I'm gonna get on board. And, they were suddenly enjoying millions of dollars in campaign support. And so I think, that was a really significant factor in the elections last time around.
Yeah, and we've talked about this at length, but in part how lawmakers get hooked on money like this, and Israel money is a great like kind of parallel here, which is just like, especially if you're a member of the House, you're up for election every 2 years,
Right.
and the amount of calls that you have to do to fundraise from small dollar donors or even like moderately wealthy people in your district or something like that, going directly to people as opposed to these big money interests. It just, if you can get that infusion of cash, it saves you a lot of time, and that's how easy it is. And you just sell yourself kind of piece by piece. But I guess let's now turn to the year of technoligarchy 2025. You connect the imperial ambitions of Donald Trump in a place I would say, when even talking about his policy towards Ukraine and being more conciliatory towards Vladimir Putin, but I'd also argue his fixation on Greenland is a part of this as well. This crypto almost imperialism that has become embedded in the administration, this fixation on rare earth minerals and things like that. How much of that do you see as informing Trump's foreign policy agenda?
I think it's a huge factor. I mean, we have seen how much his foreign policy approach has been influenced by his ambitions to essentially enrich his allies, whether that is oil companies in Venezuela, for example, whether it is tech companies that need access to rare earth minerals, whether it is crypto, which needs access to massive amounts of electricity. In that piece, I point to a claim by Putin that, Trump was essentially interested in taking over a nuclear power plant that is, in Ukraine, but is controlled by Russia. And, the idea is that Russia and the U.S. would jointly manage this Ukrainian power plant, and the U.S. would set up crypto mining nearby. Now, of course, this is coming from Putin, so grain of salt. But, that is very aligned with Trump's general goal, which seems to be to seize land, assets, territory, whatever it may be, and then funnel them either to himself. He obviously has massive crypto interests of his own. His family is involved in crypto mining. Or to his very wealthy oligarch allies in, oil, crypto, tech, AI, whatever sector it may be. And, I think this is part of what the tech industry paid for in 2024 was to receive these benefits. These sort of the imperial conquest, or whether it was regulatory relief, where, after Trump was elected, we saw many, many, many cases against crypto companies suddenly dropped by regulators. We saw pardons of cryptocurrency executives. I think this is all very much linked. And
how linked is it to AI? It seems like almost the crypto currency corruption infrastructure has become the AI corruption infrastructure too. It's basically the same players, same infrastructure.
Right. I mean, a lot of the major players who funded the 2024 crypto political machine are, Andreessen Horowitz, for example, which has broad interests across not only cryptocurrency, but AI. A lot of cryptocurrency companies have sort of expanded into AI to varying degrees. And now we're also seeing the AI sector look at what crypto did in 2024 with their very focused super PACs and directly follow that playbook. 2024, we had Fairshake. It was the name of this independent super PAC that was specifically supporting crypto interests. We have now, going into 2026, a super PAC called Leading the Future, which it has allegedly $100 million committed to it from AI interests. And it's the same tactic of essentially saying we're going to support candidates who are going to advocate to deregulate AI and otherwise benefit AI interests. And so I think in 2026, we're going to be contending not only with the cryptocurrency super PACs, which are already as well funded as they were in 2024 and ready to deploy that money. But we're also going to be dealing with another $100 million on coming from AI and probably far more as they continue to fundraise.
And the parallels don't really end there, in that both of these technologies are very energy intensive,
right?
And are accelerating the worst effects of climate change, and that I think can't be. It needs to be emphasized more, really, because they are rapacious and not and the. For cryptocurrency, we're talking just pure speculation. AI has value, but the value is incredibly overstated and not matching the share of our economy, let alone what we are sacrificing from an environmental standpoint to justify it.
Right. And I think, with AI, you're also facing the fact that we're watching an authoritarian regime take advantage of AI to advance their abuses of the American public. I mean, we see reporting after reporting after reporting about how ICE is using AI to try to target immigrant communities. We're seeing how it's being used for essentially mass surveillance. I mean, these are the people who are benefiting from government contracts and looking to limit the degree to which there can be anyone watching over how this technology is deployed. So I think it's something we really need to care about.
Yes, to your point, I had forgotten to headline this at the start of the show because there's just so much news. But NBC News had reporting from last night about how ICE was using artificial intelligence to rush to add 10,000 new officers to their force. And an AI error created some sort of issue with how the applications were processed and sent many new recruits into field offices without proper training. This is what what ICE is telling to NBC News, because there was this reporting. I know I'm a little bit afield of what we want to discuss, but from Slate, where a reporter was approved to be an ICE agent without filling out domestic violence paperwork, without filling out background checks. So yeah, it could be AI, or they're using AI as an excuse. I'm not sure necessarily if it matters, but it is amazing how, even when we go back and look at Doge, you wrote about that a little bit too, how we still don't even have a full accounting of how much information Elon Musk scraped, personal private data from every American, sensitive things like bank information, your social security number, with Doge going all and ransacking the federal government. That was very much him trying to get ahead, it appeared, of his competitors in the AI race.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I think that, that's a really important thing to highlight, is the extent to which AI is also being used as a way to sort of dodge accountability. We see this very often. If something goes wrong, it's, it was an AI mistake. And then who do you blame? You just arrest a computer, you fire a computer. That's not going to happen. And so it's a very convenient way to say, well, oops, we made a mistake, but we just got, have to move on. We'll fix the AI, whatever it might be. And so, yeah, I mean, I think that, we're watching these AI companies, funneling money towards various Congress people, towards the president, in order to advance their interests. And then, on the other hand, they are reaping the benefits, whether it's government contracts going to Musk, XAI, we're seeing Palantir, obviously, very heavily connected. And, they're very much using this influence that they have purchased in order to benefit themselves, their companies, their bottom line.
You also write a little bit about these prediction markets, so-called prediction markets. This is becoming really concerning. You have CNN entering into partnership with Kalshi to use gambling on politics and integrating that into their news coverage. On Polymarket, you can bet on the amount of people that die in Gaza, or when the ceasefire was going to happen back in the day. I don't even know. I'm sure I could do a deep dive and find even more disgusting and brutal things that people are currently betting on. We also see insider trading. That's clearly happening. You saw somebody make hundreds of thousands of dollars after they placed a bet on when Trump was going to bomb Venezuela. And that was obviously inside information, for example. Talk about these emerging markets, who the players are behind particularly Polymarket and Kalshi, and what your view is of how they're getting integrated into other established businesses in this country.
Yeah, I mean, this has been a huge part of what we've watched happening over 2025 is the emergence of these prediction markets and their sudden ubiquity, where people are betting on elections and sports and, anything you can imagine. These used to be very tightly regulated. There were, a limited number of them. They were essentially academic experiments to study whether or not market forces essentially created more accurate predictions. But over the past couple of years, thanks to some very aggressive legal action and lobbying, certainly, they have dramatically expanded what they've been able to do. And now there's this huge retail push to bring in gamblers, essentially, to bet on these prediction markets. A lot of this was really thanks to the CFTC over the past year, which has taken a dramatically different approach to these markets. They used to essentially take the stance that these are, these types of markets are not allowed, that you're not allowed to have gambling on elections, essentially, under these regulations. That has dramatically shifted over the past year as the regulator has been dismantled, essentially. I mean, there's currently one CFTC commissioner, the newest chair of the CFTC, Mike Selig, who has very little regulatory experience and is the sole commissioner on what is supposed to be a bipartisan 5-person commission. And the stance of the CFTC has essentially been, they've done a complete 180. They've said, now, this is innovation. We need to promote innovation by allowing these prediction markets and really furthering these prediction markets. And it really needs to be underscored that Donald Trump Jr. sits on the board of Kalshi and Polymarket.
Both?
Yeah, you would think that would be a crazy conflict of interest. They're total competitors. And yet that is somehow happening. I guess they are just so interested in having a member of the Trump family on the board that they're willing to overlook that.
Molly, it's his expertise. It's his expertise, okay?
Right. Right. And, and his VC company is invested, and there are other members of the administration who have been very closely tied to these prediction markets. I mean, the original nominee for the CFTC chair was on the board of Kalshi. And so, this is a huge push by these companies to do essentially what crypto has done and take control of the regulator in order to allow these companies to become a huge part of our day-to-day lives. And so, as you mentioned, now we're seeing these predictions, quote unquote, integrated into news reporting. We're seeing reporters really treating them as though they're not wagers, but as though they are actual odds of an event happening. And then we're seeing all of this, very likely malfeasance, which is essentially going completely unaddressed because the CFTC does not really have, first of all, they don't have resources, but second of all, they really don't police insider trading in the way that you would think they might, in the way that the SEC does in the stock market, for example, or in the way that gambling regulators try to ensure that people who are able to influence the outcome of a wager are not allowed to bet on that market. And so, not only are we seeing these things sort of infiltrating American life, but we're also seeing the actual people who are being encouraged to place bets on these markets being put at a complete disadvantage because, they're betting against people who have superior information. And so they're getting taken for a ride in that sense as well.
And perhaps they think like, insider trading happens all the time, and like big banks get tip-offs before, say, retail investors do on, certain changes or sell-offs or things like that in the market. And probably the justification is like, well, that is kind of legitimized in our more formal casino. Why can't we do it in our new casino? Right?
Right. Yeah, I mean, there's certainly, I think, some degree of that, but you see all of these really wild statements from these companies about how insider trading is good, actually. They've actually come out and said that you get more accurate predictions if insiders are allowed to bet on these markets, and therefore that's a good thing.
Because they know what's going to happen. Yeah, that's why it's more accurate. God damn it.
When it suits them, they essentially make the argument that, well, our goal is to have the most accurate predictions, and so therefore it doesn't matter if all of these bettors are getting totally fleeced by people who have better access to information. But then on the other hand, they're essentially marketing, they sort of turn around and market these platforms as ways for people to make money, everyday people to come in and bet on, sports games or politics or whatever it may be. They sort of want to have it both ways where, on the one hand, they're like, well, it's the best source of information. On the other hand, it's a way for retail investors to make money. And both can't really be true. People don't tend to want to place bets on rigged platforms. Essentially, it's very much a dissuading force.
Well, I mean, I'm actually curious about the mechanics about this because, say, lines, if you're sports betting, lines can move based on how much money is placed on one side of things, right? So I don't know exactly. I know that you're not betting against the casino with Polymarket Kalshi. You're betting against your other bettors. But what would happen if, say, somebody had significant insider information about an action? Would they be able to sway the odds in their favor so that, like, oh, there's a bunch of money on this outcome? So that would incentivize people to take the plus money, right? The less likely one if they think so, even if the insider information has it already locked down. It makes the alternative look more attractive, I would imagine, because the odds are better if you're betting against the outcome, but you don't have the insider information.
Yeah, I mean, and I think that's also something that is sort of going unaddressed here is the way in which the odds, so, the so-called odds can be manipulated. For one, you're right that there is this sort of monetary incentive that comes into play if someone has this significant insider information. But one thing I've been thinking about a lot quite recently is these partnerships with news platforms and the fact that they are essentially in their own way moving these markets, because the more they are reporting on these types of topics, the more they emphasize one set of, one side of the information compared to another, the more that the people watching these markets are going to take that side. I mean, people are working with the information that's in front of them. And now we have direct partnerships with news platforms that are supposedly providing information and these prediction markets where people are profiting off of public perception. It's a crazy partnership for any outlet that is claiming to be providing high quality information, accurate, unbiased news, when, the incentive now is to essentially present the side of the story that, moves these markets. And so I think we're going to see a lot more of these scandals where, people are manipulating public perception, where they are manipulating the markets themselves in order to make the news. That's another, I think, big factor. We saw this to some extent during the 2024 election, where huge bets were being placed on Polymarket, and then suddenly there'd be this whole news cycle about how, oh, maybe the odds are actually different from what the polls are saying, and maybe you should reconsider your political activities based on these Polymarket odds that are so different. And I think that's the public perception goes both ways, where the perception influences the markets and the markets influence perception.
Yeah. Lastly, on this, Molly, I guess the question is, who gives a crap if their predictions are good or not? Like, except for their investors, why is that the state? They're like, insider trading is good because it makes our prediction markets better. That's what they claim. All right, let's take that at face value. Sure. Why do I give a shit?
Well, it's a part of the push to integrate these markets into the news. You know, the idea is that if we have really accurate predictions, we can report more accurately on what's happening, what's going to happen.
But that's what reporters are supposed to ask insiders in the government to do, like reporting about what the government's doing. That's, you know,
right.
just throwing that out there. But let's outsource it to the casino.
I mean, yeah, essentially, you know, the idea is that the best source of it's a very sort of like libertarian free market type of thing, which is like the most pure source of information about the future comes from these financial markets. And therefore, they have inherent value as a source of truth, a source of information. Whether or not that is really borne out by the research, I think really remains to be seen, because there has been research on the accuracy of prediction markets. Like I said, that was largely why prediction markets were even allowed to operate in the first place, was to study this kind of thing. But it was under very, very different circumstances, where these were tightly limited academic projects. You could not go and bet $1 million. You could only bet, you know, very minimal amounts of money. You were limited in who could do those bets and to what extent. And so now they're essentially extrapolating that research to these markets, where now there's all of this financial maneuvering happening, where public perception is being manipulated through these markets, where there are all these incentives for people to make trades that don't necessarily reflect their position on what is actually going to happen, but instead is just a way for them to make money in the interim. And, you know, they're saying, yeah, this research still holds out. And I really don't think that is a safe thing to say.
Well, I appreciate it, Molly. I can't get over the circular logic and how that it's so self-serving. It's unbelievable.
And all their pockets are being lined.
Right.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, thanks so much. Can't recommend Citation Needed enough. You can, all of your work there is free, but if people have like some extra change lying around to support your work, you do accept donations and subscriptions. But just like the fact that all this is available to people, it's a great service you're doing. Thanks so much, Molly White. Appreciate your time today.
Thanks so much.
All right. With that, we're going to wrap up the free part of this program and head into the fun half, so-called fun half, where we will take your calls, maybe. We will read your IMs for sure, and we will do some clips. Absolutely.
Yeah, just to underline the sort of sink into dystopia that we are viewing here. For all of our entire lives, the employment of journalists has been cratering. Fewer and fewer journalists compared to like the 80s, mainly because of advertising. So to replace that, what we're getting is cable television, TikTok, and our news programs are going to rely on betting markets to make their predictions better. Again, for what? Like, why do I care if they're even good? What does that mean for me?
That's the point, is like, that's what I just couldn't, that broke my brain slightly, is the circular self-serving logic of it. They're like, you need to allow us to do something that should definitely be illegal, because if you don't let us do it,
the predictions will be worse.
The predictions.
Who gives a shit?
Well,
what do I care if the bookies don't know if the Giants are going to beat the Jets? Like, I don't care.
Right.
And meanwhile, China has connected all of their major cities with high-speed rail.
Yeah.
Like, so they let's look at the present instead of trying to guess the fucking future, because some speculators, some parasites, everyone. I mean, I have this clip. I went to Kalshi. I went to our sound polls.
Okay.
Let's bring Brandon in here too. But this is this clip that Emma was referring to, and it's like these people, they just need. And I would like journalists like Molly O'Shea to like get a little bit wiser about this. And she asked a good question, so I don't want to be too harsh on her. But I mean, just generally speaking, tech journalists is. These people, it's funny Molly brought up Web3. Like, remember that?
Yeah.
Or remember how crypto was going to help, like, people in poor countries, like, blah, blah, blah. They will just say shit about how this is going to make the world better, because that's what you need to do while you're waiting for the money to come in.
You know who did that? Tech. The entire tech industry,
the
entire Obama years, and then a lot of liberals fell for it.
Mark Zuckerberg to help with connectivity as he's making a surveillance state. But here's this clip of this
the Kalshi guy.
Yeah, and just like listen to this bullshit again. This is just what you need to say as you're waiting for passive income to come in because you own society.
Multiple times that you think prediction markets will be bigger than the stock market. What is it going to take to become $1 trillion asset class?
It's pretty much already like a close to 100 billion a year asset class, right? Like, it's pretty easy to imagine a 10x from here. Like, we haven't even started. It's been a year. I think a very large number of people care, much larger than traditional markets. And I think retail as a pie has just been growing.
Traditional markets where they're like buying and selling actual commodities, not just bets on the future.
Does he mean though traditional stock market?
Yeah, but at least you're buying like.
Well, that's the point. It's like, oh yeah, it's like, we're really predatory. Okay, just want to put that out there. So like for people that are not necessarily or intimidated by the stock market, we can let you bet on like very straightforward outcomes, and you can buy in with even less oversight than the actual stock market.
And just to remind everyone, the reason we allow the stock market to have such a prominence in our society is because it's supposed to be the best way for allocating funds. But really, all that's really looked at by people who invest in it is a big way to make free money.
Well, I mean, also just to say as well, the only reason that the stock market exists because it's heavily regulated, because there was a huge crash where tons of people lost everything, including their lives as a result. And so in order for there to be a stock market, it had to be regulated. People forgot those lessons now because they have been propagandized by crypto types or scammers to delegitimize regulation, SEC, but those regulations saved the stock market, and eventually if these things, they made them legitimate, and if these things are going to stick around, they're going to need to be regulated. But the whole predictions market thing is so dystopian. It's like the kind of thing that if you were writing anti-capitalist propaganda about America, you would add in there. You'd be like, oh yeah, and in America, everything is commodified. You bet on everything. People have so few opportunities. They have to bet on, every single aspect of life.
Yep.
Yeah, he makes this case positively here in just a second.
Yeah, here's the actual bullshit we tuned in for.
To financialize everything and create a tradable asset going outside of stock market. The long-term vision is to financialize everything and create a tradable asset out of any difference in opinion. And I think if you do build a general purpose exchange that can resolve differences of opinions on anything, the TAM is quite massive, quite a bit bigger than the current TAM of the stock market.
TAM is total accessible market, meaning we can get a bunch of dumb people to bet on, how many people died in Gaza.
I think putting aside sort of the retail trading and the institutional trading product, there's sort of this separate product, which is we are living in a world where we have an abundance of information, but there's a lot of noise, and we don't really understand what's real from what's not. And prediction markets are an antidote to that. They do a very, very good job at distilling information and surfacing truth to people, and you're seeing this sort of massive shift where
all right, whatever. It's just the idea that we should regulate the disinformation in tech, and instead of creating a casino to monetize the dysfunction that we've all experienced.
The thing is hello guys. The thing is prediction markets. It's funny because unless there is a specific prediction you're betting on where the information is knowable by an inside source, they aren't better at guessing anything. For example, during the New York City mayoral primary, where people actually have to vote and no one has an inside track like they do at a company on who's going to win or what product's going to come out or something like that, the prediction markets had Cuomo in the lead for the entire time until election day, if I recall correctly, where it was clear that Mamdani was winning, and then it switched before the election results were finally called because it was clear he was going to win. And because it switched at the last minute, everyone who loves these prediction markets claim that, oh, the prediction market called it. No, it saw reality and what was going on for actually, and it swapped who it was predicting it was good, was winning.
Whoa,
it was it's ludicrous.
The logic here is just stupid. The feedback problem is an issue. Caroline Leavitt left the podium in the White House about 45 seconds before the bet on how long she was going to address the press was. The entire thing becomes just an insider's game to traffic on their information. And the whole retail thing that this parasite from Kalshi's talking about, that's just to get more money into the pot so those insiders can collect more when they eventually use their insider information to say oh, I guess what, we are going to kidnap Maduro.
Yep.
I mean, a lot of people got hip to crypto as like a shell game that funnels money from outsiders to insiders. And a lot of people are already addicted to sports gambling. And so this sort of predictions market types of betting, it feels a lot more accessible than crypto. It feels a lot more like sports gambling. And for insiders, it has the same ability to help funnel money from rubes into your pocket. And for the news, it gets people excited about the news. Look at all of the advertisements you'll see on sports news from from the DraftKings or whatever sports betting websites. This is just the regular news version of that, because now you can bet on the events of the regular news too. And so like there's a monetary incentive in getting people invested in like the regular news as well. It's really disgusting. It is like beyond dystopian.
Like the cryptocurrency people who the cryptocurrency skeptics who were calling this stuff out were saying years ago that Web3 and NFTs and all that is just the first moves of the tech industry to financialize everything. Like it was being said years ago. It's just that they thought the way to financialize everything would be to make a digital version of all products. But it turns out the real way to financialize everything is to just gamify it all. People love to play games, love to bet and guess and do shit like that, love to go to their casino. So that's the way they'll financialize everything.
Some people don't like sport. Some people don't like sport. Some people don't understand crypto. Some people are intimidated by the stock market. Everyone can bet on whether it's going to rain tomorrow. Everyone everyone gets that. So the total addressable market is a lot higher than any of those other things because it's not as alienating in principle, like because it requires no special knowledge. But if you happen to have special insider knowledge, it benefits you, obviously.
Yeah.
All right.
Also, everyone will have gambling addictions, but let's go to the fun half.
Yeah, let's go to the fun half. Quickly, you guys, what's happening on your shows? And don't speak at the same time. Okay, I wanted to see who would go first. All right, go. I want to play a little game. Brandon, what's happening on the Discourse?
Put it on the betting markets. Who's going to speak first in the majority board today?
Yeah, okay. Brandon, what's going on?
Okay, I'm going to go first. Well, today, and I'll have this clipped for you all by tomorrow, we took a turn on the wild side with Candace, whose newest theory posits that Charlie Kirk was a time traveler.
Do we have that for today?
Time Charlie.
We do. All right.
What kind of time traveler? We don't know yet. So we'll have to find out today on the majority report as well. So there's that. And so, yeah, check out the Discourse Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. to 12 p.m. Eastern. We are almost at 15,000 on YouTube, and we are at over 5,000 on Twitch. We have a big crowd.
All right. Time traveler. What's happening on? There was that movie, The Time Traveler's Wife. I keep thinking about from.
That's what I thought of too.
Yes,
that's
it's
like
very
the first
bad.
thing I thought of.
Candace is the Time Traveler's wife. In this way, Binder, what's happening on your shows?
So I'm still recovering from CES last week and the holiday season before that. So this is actually the first stream I'm doing of the year so far, but I'll be doing my second stream of the year tonight, 8:30 p.m. Eastern time at youtube.com/Matt Binder for Leftist Mafia.
And Matt Leck, what's happening with you?
Tomorrow morning, Jacobin show, Nila Tabrizi talking about Iran and maybe another guest. And so check that out, 10 o'clock a.m. Eastern time. Subscribe to the Jacobin YouTube channel.
And I was just reminded, thinking about Left Reckoning, that I want to reveal, and we'll put this in the link down below, that David Griscom's book, The Myth of Red Texas, is now available for pre-order. We'll put a link to that below, but he included my blurb, which I was very happy to see, because I was like, oddly, it's the first blurb I've ever written for someone's book. I was like, God, I hope I don't sound like an idiot.
There it is, right at the top.
Yep, it's right at the top. So I'm pumped. I'm going to be moderating his book talk and I guess like opening kind of Q&A thing in late February. We've promoted that before on the show, but I'm sure we'll put a link down below to that. It'll be in New York City. I think it's February 25th, but I don't want to
Late February, definitely.
Yes.
Pre-order now, 15% off
25th.
from OR Books, so you can get either the
It's very good.
Kindle ebook or a print ebook. Definitely, if you know somebody in Texas, pick them up a copy for this.
It's very good, and it's very it reclaims the myths, not to use from the book title, but like of rugged individualism and like an almost like kind of cowboy ethos that has papered over class struggle and racial struggle in the South, and particularly in Texas. And David kind of like painstakingly, but with beautiful writing, goes through these examples.
I mean, the modern conservative control of Texas, it's a disgrace to Texas. The bootlicking sort of servility of all the people that support Abbott and Patrick and all those losers. There's a actual like lineage there that's to be respected. That is the real sort of Texas freedom representative.
And speaking of Texas, we're getting word, and maybe we'll cover this. Friend of the show, Greg Stoker, is running for Congress in Texas's 31st. Woo! We'll check that out soon. But appreciate you all. See you in the fun half.
Okay, Emma, please.
Well, I feel that my voice is sorely lacking on the majority report.
Wait, whoa. Look, Sam is unpopular.
I do deserve a vacation at Disney World. So, ladies and gentlemen, it is my pleasure to welcome Emma to the show.
It is Thursday.
Yeah, I think you need to take over for Sam.
Yes, please.
No. I'm gonna pause you right there.
Wait, what?
You can't encourage Emma to live like this. And I'll tell you why. So was offered to twerk, sushi, and poker with the boys. Twerk, sushi, and poker with the boys. So was offered to twerk, sushi, and poker with the boys.
What?
Twerk, sushi, and poker.
Tim's upset.
Twerk, sushi, and poker with the boys. So was offered to twerk, sushi, and
that's what we call the biz.
Twerk, sushi, and poker with the boys.
Right.
Twerk, sushi, and poker.
We're gonna get demonetized.
I just think that what you did to Tim Pool was mean.
Free speech.
That's not what we're about here. Look at how sad he's become now. You shouldn't even talk about it. I think you're responsible.
I probably am in a certain way, but let's get to the meltdown here.
Twerk, sushi, and poker with the boys.
Oh my God.
Twerk,
wow.
Sushi. I'm sorry, I'm losing my fucking mind. So was offered to twerk, sushi, and poker with the boys.
Logic.
Twerk, sushi, and poker with the boys. Boy. Twerk.
I think I'm like a little kid. I think I'm like a little kid. I think I'm like a kid.
Twerk.
I think I'm like a little kid. I think I'm like a little kid.
Had this debate 7,000 times.
A little kid. I think I'm like a little kid. I think I'm like a kid.
Twerk. I'm losing my fucking mind.
Some people just don't understand.
So I'm not trying to be a dick right now, but like, I absolutely think the U.S. should be providing me with a wife and kids.
That's not what we're talking about here. Okay, all right.
It's not a fun job.
Twerk.
That's a real thing. That's a real thing. Real thing.
Willy Wonka. Twerk.
That's a real thing. That's a real thing. Real thing.
What's that offered to twerk?
That's a real thing. That's a real thing. Real thing. That's a real thing. That's a real thing. Real thing.
What's that offered to twerk?
Ladies and gentlemen, Joe Rogan has done it again.
That offered to twerk?
That's a real thing. That's
poker with the boys.
I think he might be blowing it out of proportion. Real thing. That's
poker with the boys. That offered to twerk?
That's a real thing. That's
poker.
Let's go, Joey.
Twerk, sushi, and poker with the boys.
Take it easy, Dan.
Twerk, sushi, and poker.
Things have really gotten out of hand.
Sushi and poker with the boys.
Delusional.
Twerk,
Deluded.
sushi.
You don't have a clue as to what's going on. Live YouTube.
Sam has like the weight of the world on his shoulders.
Sam
Sam doesn't want to do this show anymore. It was so much easier when the majority report was just you. You were happy.
Let's change the subject.
Right.
Rangers and Knicks are doing great.
Now shut up. Don't want people saying reckless things on your program.
That's one of the most difficult parts about this show.
This is a pro-killing podcast.
I'm thinking maybe it's time we bury the hatchet.
Left is best. Trump. Violet.
Twerk.
Don't be foolish and don't fucking tweet at me and don't bitch. The way Emma has cucked all of these people. Love it.
That's where my heart is, so I wrote my honors thesis about it.
Oh,
Sorry.
she wrote an honest thesis. I guess I should hand the main mic to you now.
You want to go right of me on foreign policy.
We already fund Israel, dude. Are you against that?
That's a tougher question. I have an answer to.
Incredible theme song.
Hi, Bumbler.
Emma Vigeland, absolutely one of my favorite people. Actually, not just in the game, like period.
We are back, folks. It is the fun half of the Majority Report. Read some IMs, and then we'll get into some clips here. TMR Peace Prize winner Jacob Silverman, who was a two-time guest on MR, did extensive crypto analysis for his book Gilded Rage. Anything from January 6th to crypto CEOs establishing a new political think tanks to Trump doing rug pulls. Crypto has entrenched itself into American politics much deeper than most realize. By the way, he gave Emma and Sam a shout out in his book acknowledgments. We had Jacob on for Gilded Rage, right? I believe
I'm
we
pretty
did.
sure, yeah.
Yeah. You know, and he's phenomenal. And
I think the important thing that he's emphasizing is the political economy of where all these guys came from, which is not that they just had all of these great ideas and became massively rich. Like, you know, our economy became structured toward that sort of company instead of keeping people in their homes. Through things like quantitative easing, we created a bunch of money to pump into banks that they could invest into tech companies. Instead of we could have created the same amount of money and give it to people who were underwater on their mortgages, keeping them in their houses. Instead, we gave it to banks. Banks wanted quick returns, like they saw with Google and those sorts of companies. And so that's where all the money's gone. And now that's why Reed Hastings thinks that he's on a level with Elizabeth Warren, because he made LinkedIn. I can't get over this.
I know, the
Go make another
entitlement.
website. You want to grow the fucking economy? Go start coding, big boy.
It's amazing that he feels like he sounds like he's being polite as he responds to Elizabeth Warren, and it's like,
who are you?
We have some disagreements. It's like, I mean, it's like me saying to some sort of like rocket scientist, like, you know, I have some opinions on your work,
It's
and
like
we
me
have
going
some
up to-
disagreements. It's not my job.
Yeah, it's like me going up to Chris Finch of the Timberwolves saying, "Hey, put Behringer in for 15 minutes a game, please." It's like, who are you?
Right. Oy. Felonious Monk, to Emma's point about the importance of crypto in 2024, it mirrors the 1896 election in regards to silver. History is dope. I mean, I see that. I can see that, yeah.
It's a secret little ulterior motive to Custer being out west, as he was heavily invested in silver mines.
Dave from Talon, it's like they heard that Sinclair quote about fascism coming to America being wrapped in the flag and carrying a cross and thought, that's a great idea, freaks. Lex, and it means a lot to hear the men on Majority Report holding other men accountable for violence inflicted on women, especially the escalation of gender violence with ICE and harmful rhetoric men often have when speaking about women. That might have been a two-parter, but agree with the sentiment. The first part, thank you, Emma, for continuing to reiterate how this administration is driven by misogyny and the actions of ICE uphold the patriarchy. Yeah, I try to shoehorn in my feminism, even though I know it's so lame and dudes don't want to hear about it, but
It's the truth about this administration. I mean, I talked with Kylie Chung about this on Left Reckoning, but and we've emphasized it here, the amount of rapists and predators that aren't just being allowed, but are being sought for positions and offered, it is intentional.
Being imported. They imported Andrew Tate. They brought him in. And I mean, honestly, I think misogyny has become a lot more virulent on the right as a result of Trump. You see a real adoption of incel and divorced dad politics on the far right that I think is distinct from the types of misogyny that they used to practice, even if it's all rooted in the same thing. They're a lot more vocally hateful of women. They say a lot more just openly disgusting things. But you're like, don't you have a wife at home? You
got some conservative influencers out there going on social media and saying horrible shit publicly about their wives now. There was that guy that Christian nationalist guy who said he was ashamed to be married to a Latino woman and how it's not natural, even though he took part in it. This is an unbelievable
fucking microphone.
I mean, and we don't need to. We can speculate a little bit on Jonathan Ross. I mean, I don't know what's going on with his wife, but he's a military guy. That is what?
Yeah, we can't
I
speculate
do,
on
but-
microphone. We can do it when they're off.
Okay.
I feel like I have a good grip on the military man with a Filipino wife.
Yeah.
But I don't need to say it into a microphone.
Maybe he's a very nice man at home.
There is a class of man that wants a subservient wife.
Passport bros, I think
Oh,
is
yeah,
a,
no.
a term that comes up.
Yeah.
There's a class of white supremacists who hates white women the most, for
Yep.
sure. Like there's a class of bigot in America now, and I think it's gotten a lot worse under Trump. A lot, especially with the politics of like 4chan and like I hate my mom, I hate my teacher. Where like they might hate brown people, but they hate women, especially white women who orbit around them a lot more. And they came out in the Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
No, I think in part they hate white women too because white women have more license in society to act as they want because whiteness is privilege, right? Like, I mean, they want a structure where they are dominant over a woman in the home and in the world. And it,
Sorry, Fox News.
That was in the lab.
It was cooking.
This needs a soundtrack. But I mean, I think people get the point. I want to just quickly, because we're just 15. I know that it's short and it's not a clip, but I just wanted to make sure that we got to it. Checking in on Richie Torres, folks. Right now we're pressuring the Democrats in Congress to hold the line on Department of Homeland Security appropriations ahead of the January 30th deadline, saying you have to make demands to rein in ICE. We're not funding DHS until X, Y, Z. Sam had a suggestion, no masks, right? No masks. There should be, I think it should be more than that, even more maximalist demands about really cutting into their budget, barring them from moving certain kinds of money over to detention and using funds in that capacity, putting in guardrails about protecting people's civil liberties. These are the kinds of asks that Democrats need to have.
That they should have and should be able to ask for it, but we have the Senate Democrats.
And well, Richie's in the House, and he's gonna get creative here in just a second. But like, this needs to happen. We're already seeing a complete transformation of public opinion around ICE. This YouGov Economist poll now has it as the plurality opinion of abolishing ICE, but you see even in more conservative polls, a 20-point shift in a year and change from when Trump got elected in support of abolishing ICE. This is the kind of energy that a competent opposition party would harness and get behind. Let's get rid of ICE. This money should be going to your family. It should be going to your health care. It should be going to child care. Copy paste that argument for Israel. Why are we sending them billions and billions of dollars when you can't afford your groceries? These are simple, easy messages for a competent, non-corrupted political party to get behind. And simplicity is important. We saw this from the Zoran Mamdani campaign. It's not that he talked down to voters, but his platforms were clear, and what he was trying to do for people was clear. And it wasn't like, we'll lower the Pell Grant requirements for you and your family if you meet eligibility and if you're in this zone. But Richie Torres, he's figured it out. He's figured it out. His solution here to rein in ICE. I am introducing legislation, the Quick Recognition Act, QR, that requires ICE and CBP officers to wear uniforms featuring QR codes.
Oh my God.
When scanned, the code would generate a digital ID displaying the officer's name, badge number, and law enforcement agency. ICE and CBP should be unmasked, not only physically, but digitally. Okay. Transparency is not an option, but an obligation. Now, they should be unmasked. I like that addition, but can we just show the quote tweet from his primary challenger, Michael Blake? Excuse me, ICE officer, can you please lower your gun for a sec so I can scan your QR code? Michael Blake is primarying Richie Torres in the Bronx. Torres didn't have a primary challenge. We had him on. I was out that day, I think, unfortunately, but Torres' last primary was uncontested. He's got a large war chest, but people are pissed. And I just like, QR codes are the bane of everybody's existence in their regular life.
How much money is that going to cost to
Right.
get uniforms with QR codes on them?
And I just
People also,
yeah.
No, I was gonna say people don't even like them at restaurants when they
I
left
know.
it into the menus.
I know. I mean, I was like, QR codes, the things that people wish were more of a fixture in their everyday life. Well, Richie Torres is there to make that dream a reality, but this time it's with life and death consequences. Yeah, yippee. I just couldn't get over that idea.
So they can steal your phone's data, probably. So like
that was what Brian
run to your
said.
phone and immediately adds like a little
Yeah,
like
the
cookie.
DHS runs the app.
Yes,
Yeah,
yeah.
of course. Who else would? Who else could run the app?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, they say not to even scan QR codes you just see out there, like because they could take you to something that can steal or your data or scam you, or I'm sure you'll trust the QR code on an ICE officer.
That I was unaware of this too, but Brian was saying that that's a big part of why restaurants move to things like QR codes is because they sell their data to brokers. I always thought that they were saving money on like things like menus, but that didn't make any sense. That's too small ball. This is it's a racket. And let's bring that technology to resisting the Gestapo.
They don't belong in your community, QR code or not. They don't serve an actual purpose besides ethnic cleansing.
Yeah.
That's what ICE is.
Yeah.
Can
we know Jonathan Ross's identity, but Renee Good is still fucking dead.
Exactly.
Right. There's a P, and there's no smearing her as an investigator. But I want to talk about this piece that was in Fox News that a lot of people reacted to negatively. Stop the madness. What we are seeing across the country as organized gangs of wine moms. Again, this is in relation to Renee Good getting shot in the face by a white supremacist ICE agent. Antifa tactics to harass and impede ICE agents is not civil disobedience. It isn't even protest. It's just a crime. Now, I got this piece here. They've taken, I think, the wine moms thing out of at least the subhead. But this is this guy, David Marcus, and I recommend you looking up David Marcus's Twitter account because he's a sad Gen X Morrissey fan that moved from theater to whatever this is. Apparently, he's an expert on protest now. But there's some interesting stuff from this that I would just point out is politically relevant. There's a stat here about women. That I think is very interesting. According to a recent poll, and he doesn't cite the poll here, so but I'll just take this at face value. According to a recent poll, only 24% of Americans believe that it's acceptable to go beyond peaceful protest in response to ICE enforcement. Now, I'll say 1 in 4 Americans saying it's acceptable to go beyond peaceful protest in response to ICE enforcement isn't exactly nothing.
No,
that's a ton. That's a ton.
Next line.
Because I would guess that I don't know could be bigger. So sorry.
Right, exactly. But here's this. But among white women 18 to 44, that number leaps to an astounding 61%.
Hell yeah, girls. Let's go, girls. Dun, 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 dun.
You look at these guys in the street, is there any wonder why? Because they're the primary threat.
Oh my God.
This,
I feel like they are rapists just by looking at them.
They are rapists. It's a rape gang with the Uncle Sam uniform on it. And of course, women 18 to 44 are going to be the most sensitive to that.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, this is just where we are right now. So you can call them organized wine moms or whatever. It's people sensitive to rapists running around with guns.
Yes, exactly right. And a mimosa to the face can slow these guys. Just
we're gonna radicalize these women.
Oh my goodness!
Bottomless mimosas.
Right.
To the face.
Oh, that's my idea of a nice back to brunch Sunday. All right, we want to do this. Okay. Candace Owens has a new theory about Charlie Kirk.
Do you think
she
we
has
jumped the
several,
shark?
actually. She actually has several theories. So like, it's one of those things where you have to watch it because it's not just the thing you're thinking. It's also other things too.
Well, we didn't jump the shark, Matt. We apparently jumped the space-time continuum.
Oh, good. This is like season 3 of Dark on Netflix.
Oh.
I think it's science-based, by the way.
1 second. We're figuring out the audio.
honestly, this clip was so powerful that it took my stream down earlier. When she was discussing like what was going on, it crashed my stream. You can ask. Here it is.
Why did Charlie think he was a time traveler? He said, as I showed you in earlier messages, that he was a time traveler and he had to find me. Is that just something people are saying to their homies in text messages? And again, not anything that I would have placed so much emphasis on back when he was saying it, but it came to fruition. The other part.
Why not? If it was.
Yeah, I love that. I love that like point though. Like if someone came to me and said like I'm a time traveler and I've been sent to save you, like that's like the plot of Terminator. She just kind of brushed it off. She was like, "That's crazy. What do you want for brunch?"
Yeah,
like, it seems like a pretty big statement.
It's pretty salient before he dies too.
But sometimes,
for instance, I'm travel time. Like, I'm good. Actually, let's get to the details of that.
But sometimes if you're an investigative journalist like Candace, and it's a big story that you have to break open, including like the laws of physics, space, and time.
I don't have time to deal with this right now, Charlie.
Luckily, it takes a lot of time to write the story, but luckily Candace knows a time traveler that can take her back 10 minutes. She can keep working on it over and over again.
Why did Charlie think he was a time traveler? He said, as I showed you in earlier messages, that he was a time traveler and he had to find me. Is that just something people are saying to their homies in text messages?
Yes.
And again, not anything that.
No, wait, pause it. Not homies. I mean, maybe if they were a little in love. I don't know.
Yeah.
I could.
I would. Oh, he was hitting on her.
I mean, I would follow you through space and time, baby girl.
No, honestly, that sounds like a drama queen type of thing that someone would send you when they're like drunk or something. Go like,
oh yeah,
I'm a time traveler.
Yeah.
You've never gotten real like messed up and hit your friends with the "come with me if you want to live." That happens all the time.
Yeah, I'm a time travel. Also, when Nikki drops, I lose my mind.
Yeah, right. It wasn't romantic. I forgot. Yeah.
Jay-Z's Verse of Monster is my favorite.
Girls.
Also, I'm Doctor Who.
And again, not anything that I would have placed so much emphasis on back when he was saying it, but it came to fruition. The other parts, he did die young. Why did he think that him dying young was necessary in order to change things? He did die young. It is related to Turning Point USA. In some way or another, at the very least, we can all agree it's related to him speaking at a campus event for Turning Point USA. I'm totally occupied by this. I tell you, I read these messages and I'm going, what is this? What is reality, actually?
I'm asking that too.
Charlie died. Yes, like I said, it was related to this organization. And I think we would all agree that his death and the manner that they did it changed the world in ways that I don't think we can fully realize, or certainly not in a way that I can articulate.
Until time plays out more.
You just cannot pretend that all of this is one big unhappy coincidence. It's entirely plausible, I think, that they knew something about Charlie. And that's why they had him marked and had him monitored and had him likely followed since he was young. And maybe they thought, like the agents think, that if they swarmed him and they stayed with him and they pretended to be his friend, that ultimately they could control Charlie and perhaps change an outcome. They could literally change an outcome related to Charlie. So when for the first time in his life, because I do believe he was managed, I mean, I've already said I was handled. I didn't recognize that I had agents. And for the first time in his life, Charlie peeks his head up and starts to push back in a meaningful way. They couldn't stop him from becoming
not meaningful, but go on, Candace.
That seemed to be inevitable. But they panicked. They seem to have panicked, right? I mean, this is just starting to happen within a year.
Is there any more? I mean,
the time travel bit.
I just
only like 2 hours.
I mean,
cool.
her whole spiel is someone who's really, really trying hard to find that her friend who was killed died for some greater purpose, when in fact, just less than a month after he died, he's become a meme where people Photoshop his face onto other people's faces to make fun of him. I mean, it is...
Are you trying to say memes aren't meaningful? I mean, come on.
I mean, they are meaningful in ways maybe that she wants them to be, but not in the way she wants them to be meaningful, I should say. Like,
to be fair,
yeah.
Go ahead.
I would counter you with the point that I think it's far less disrespectful to Photoshop Charlie Kirk's face on another person's face or like a horse's face or whatever than it is to do something like this, which is to like seemingly just like grab Charlie Kirk's like corpse and just like shake it for like all of the loose change in his pockets. Like, because that's what Candace and TPUSA and all of the other right-wing hosts are doing. Like, you know, people are making memes to entertain themselves because, like, you know, they deal with grief different ways, like they didn't like them, all sorts of things. It's his closest friends who are like exhuming his corpse and like turning it upside down to get every dime out of it that they can. It's crazy. The rest of this video is also wild because when she says agents, she's referring to like agents in the Matrix, like literally.
No,
because she's
well-
also saying that he's being like he was marked since birth as like a, I guess, time traveler, but I don't know how that works. But
I mean, it literally, like, this is what, do we have this AOC clip about the differences between right-wing personalities? Because it's a little relevant here. It's 16. And just because I found this to be a really, you know, smart point that she made, and it's similar to what we've spoken about. We had that call last week, you know, which vision would be, if you had to choose, Tucker/Candace's versus Ben Shapiro's.
Which nationalists do you want to win?
Which would you? And our contention was that there really is not much of a difference because a lot of this is around personal grievance. To Brandon's point, it's about, you know, they're each shaking his corpse for loose change, and Candace is doing so in a maybe perhaps stimulant
Esoteric.
psychosis manner. What?
in an esoteric way.
Yes. But then the TPUSA infrastructure is doing it like for the Republican project and for TPUSA, which was very embedded in that with Republican donors and Zionist donors too. But like what she's doing here is she's approaching the Tim Pool like it's multi-universes thing. You know, there's like they're using it's like she's talking about Harry Potter, who was marked from birth and then dies. Voldemort kills him. I'm sorry to be a millennial, and then he comes back and saves us all. That's literally like what she's saying Charlie's about to do.
No, she is literally saying that in this video. She's literally quoting like Project Looking Glass and talking about all the multiverses and how Charlie was jumping like parallel timelines and the Mandela effect. This is the episode where things go off the rails. I really appreciated it because the previous ones were a little boring. The stuff about like, you know, I don't know, Egyptians' planes, and that kind of lost me. I'm glad that we're back in the place that I feel comfortable. Time traveling reptilians and the agents that mark and swarm them, because that's where my bread is buttered.
Yes, and then also just the religious undertones of it. I mean, I'm saying it's like Harry Potter, but it's also like Jesus Christ.
That's what I was wondering, is if Charlie can decide when he's going to die because of a larger plan, can he come back to us? And when
Same amount of syllables.
I mean, maybe this Easter, is that too early to expect the return of Charlie?
Oh yes, no. There's also a part of this video where she says Charlie was a mutant and went to like a special school. She literally says that he went to Charles Xavier schools for like gifted racist youth, and she didn't opine what his powers might have been, but that like he said he went to a special school. Like this whole video is, I definitely recommend it for any of you who think the recent ones have been boring, because she really abandons a lot of the like previous plot lines and goes straight into like the meat of it.
The X-Men.
Yeah, I think people reacted poorly to the
pilot.
It activates his powers. It's like the trigger for his mutant gene.
Here's AOC explaining a little bit of why we're not a show that buys into these right-wing feuds as anything more than money grabs and purely aesthetic ego trips.
If I can just quibble with you just a little bit to see what you say in response. We are talking about kind of the usual folks, the regular folks that always kind of are on the fence, and then a couple more friends. Do you see that friend group as growing, or is this kind of just a more pronounced version of the same?
You mean in terms of
like the defecting folk?
I think there's a lot of fissures in their caucus and fault lines, and it's not just on a line of left and right, but there's a lot of, when you have a party that is organized around a personality, the Republican Party their main principle is supporting Donald Trump. So when you have a party whose operating principle is around a personality, what happens then is that the fissures are all about personal dramas. And so you have sometimes these differences are ideological, but then sometimes it's a bunch of people kind of poking their fingers in each other's eyes and you don't know what's going on between them. But that's what happens when you have a political party that organizes around a cult of personality. It often devolves and it becomes more and more and more separated from the lives of working people, and it becomes more about people trying to score points off of one another.
There you go. So there isn't some come to Jesus moment on the right, whether it's Republican politicians like Marjorie Taylor Greene feuding with Trump.
I mean, what happened to her?
Yeah, or it's between two, right-wing personalities on the internet. This is not. It can be sometimes ideological, as she says, but even that is ancillary. Because we're seeing that Candace Owens is basically coming to the same place.
I mean, I think the Marjorie Taylor Greene thing is such an example of, even if it does become a problem, they have ways to get rid of it. Like, she was the #1 fundraiser for Republicans.
Grassroots fundraiser.
And she took a stand on the Epstein stuff with the other ones, and now she is gone.
Mm-hmm. So, lesson to not overstate it and just have fun with it and root for the fight.
And Tucker was seen in the White House, like applauding Trump.
Oh my
just
God.
like last week or the week before or something like that.
So much for the anti-war principles. Let's I want to do this ICE story in California because it's important. This is 6. We're focused on Minneapolis and Minnesota more broadly, and the 3,000 ICE agents that have taken over that state. A reminder that there are under 600 police officers in total in Minneapolis. And so just to give you a sense of the scale of ICE's presence in Minneapolis and in the surrounding areas. But we're hearing that officials in Maine have a sense that the Somali community is about to be targeted there in the coming weeks, and officials are preparing for ICE raids in that state. But the ICE terror in California has continued unabated as well. This is a horrible story, and I want to warn people that there is you will see a wound here that shows blood, okay? This is a 21-year-old protester named Caden Rumler. He was demonstrating against ICE in Santa Ana, California, and he has been blinded in one eye permanently, lost an eye, because a DHS agent shot him at close range in the face with a less lethal round. We don't know what that round was. It would be safe to assume it could be a rubber bullet or something equivalent to that. Pepper ball. That's perhaps at that. It's probably a pepper ball, to your point, at that close range. Because I mean, at that close range, a rubber bullet would probably kill you. So I would imagine that's what Matt just said. So his skull was fractured, according to his family member. And this was on Friday, 2 days after the killing of Renee Good. Here is a local California Fox 11 report on this.
Identifies himself as Caden Rumler. He's blind in one eye, he says, and he's sharing photos of his injuries. And I'm going to warn you, they're disturbing, but he wants to share them because he says he wants people to understand the difference between what he's saying happened and what Department of Homeland Security is saying. We also have as much video as we could of the incident. So here, take a look. Federal agents approach protesters during a Friday night rally in Santa Ana. Grab someone holding a loudspeaker and pull him away as other protesters move up, including one wearing a dark shirt who doubles over. The other protester wearing a white shirt struggles with officers. The officers then grab the protester's black shirt. Caden Rumler, who sent me these photos from the hospital where he says he is being treated for a serious eye injury, which he describes in a statement read by a fellow member of Dare to Struggle, the organization that was protesting Friday.
I heard a bang and suddenly I was on my knees. The DHS agent dragging me towards the building. I was gripping the front of my collar.
Over the phone, Caden explains he was taken inside the government building and eventually transported to a hospital where he remains after losing his eye. This is the moment he says an agent shot him.
Shot at point blank range in the face with a pepper ball bullet.
Pepper ball, yeah. The other protesters seen struggling with officers also speaking to media.
I was released from Santa Ana jail after being held for almost 3 days without knowing my charge until the morning of my release.
DHS responding to Fox 11 saying this was a mob throwing rocks, bottles, and fireworks, and that, quote, one of the rioters who was arrested for disorderly conduct was taken to the hospital for a cut and was released that night.
Cut.
Orange County Supervisor Vicente Sarmiento says he was there and that local authorities cannot get any details from the feds about what you see happening in this video.
We can't hold anybody responsible. That's the frustration that people have, is that they're seeing this unfold before their eyes with little to no accountability.
And he's also afraid.
Just remember when the ICE says the stuff about riots and stuff like that, that was a guy with a bullhorn yelling at these officers, and they grabbed one of them and shot another in the eye.
Well, Trump and then dragged him into the federal building by his collar after blinding him. Shoot, I had one thought and I keep losing it because it's just right. Trump, thank you. Trump is saying it too. He keeps giving up the game. He does this all the time where Republicans have some messaging, whether it's narco terrorists, that's what they're going after in Venezuela, and then Trump goes, oh, it's for the oil. Okay, stepped all over that lie. We can't lie effectively with you because you have no filter. And that's the same thing with this stuff with ICE, where he said on Air Force One when asked by a reporter that it was because she was being very disrespectful and rude, Renee Good. Because that's what it is. When they talk about threats, it's because the Gestapo doesn't like to be disrespected.
That's why they were excited to release the footage of the murderers. The murder was taken as he right before he murdered her, is because it showed lesbian women getting in their face, not cowing to their authority as the fascist goon squad.
So I guess yes, that young man, 21-year-old kid, blinded in one eye.
Also, shout out to I forget the name of the group that they cited there, but all those young folks putting their bodies literally on the line. That's happening across communities now, and everyone just stay safe as best you can. And I mean, this is the stakes. Unfortunately, is you might get shot in the face and killed or blinded, and you'll be smeared by the government.
Right. And also a good message in terms of the use of non-lethal rounds. Like they act like it's just like, oh, you get pegged in the arm or something. No, they could really, really hurt you to the point where you lose an eye. I mean, I remember during Occupy Wall Street, there was a young vet in California, I think it was, who got hit in the head when they shot a gas canister. And he suffered severe brain damage, and he was literally someone who came home from Iraq, and he got injured here. It's with non-lethal rounds, of course. Yeah.
Brian. Yeah.
I was there.
Okay, I didn't know if you wanted to say on air.
I was like 20 feet from that moment.
Oh, you were that? You were at?
Wow. In Oakland. Yeah.
Right, that was Oakland. Right.
Is it UC Santa Barbara where the guy spray painted or pepper sprayed the kids that were like sitting down?
That was Berkeley.
Berkeley, right.
Read
Remember when we were appalled by that, and now that would be like, we wouldn't even have time to play that on the show.
Quotidian. Jimmy Cricket. Riot is an unfinished grave that was dug to deposit depleted anger, like barrels of uranium leaking into something sacred. It is a word used to delegitimize your unrest and to make your resistance into an overreaction. Benny from Jersey. Emma, regarding the misogyny inherent to fascism and ICE in particular, you should check out Klaus Theolet's 2-volume male fantasy series, which psychoanalyzes. I literally ordered that last night. or 2 nights ago. It's been on, but I will get halfway through a book and I have a hard time finishing them. It's a bad habit I've gotten into, but this one I will finish. But it was on my list for a while and I finally pulled the trigger on that. 2-volume male fantasy series, I'll just say, which psychoanalyzes the memoirs of members of the Freikorps. I don't know how this Freikorps. And their attitudes to women, particularly leftist working class women. Also, a dude, want to hear more feminist analysis from you, please, and thank you.
What was that book?
It is the male fantasy series. It's by this German author. I think it was written in like the 1950s or something, and it analyzes Nazi texts about their misogyny and how it was inherent, I think, to the rise of fascism. Tyler in Colorado. Charlie's munition was that he was part donkey. Unfortunately, the only part of the donkey he got was its smile. I don't get what that means.
It's a very strange, like a child story style insult of a joke.
Ice Babies, this Candace stuff is getting into padded wall territory.
Getting there.
Christy Noam, Candace 100% has religious psychosis. It's insane, actually.
Yeah.
Rob from Dedham, trying to scan QR codes of ICE agents approaching me just for it to pull up DHS recruitment and followed by a Kalshi ad for odds that that my ICE officer chokes me out. But in all seriousness, we have no opposition party. We are so effed.
I would support it if it was in the form of a sandwich board. You know?
Yeah.
To wear over it, because that would really incapacitate them.
That
They
would
just had to wear a giant QR code sandwich board.
That would make sense. It's also like, how did they can just cover up the freaking QR code? Right. Whatever. Gigabiologist, I want to mention how much it sucks to run with body armor and a bunch of shit on. It's also very easy to lose your balance, especially if you are out of shape running on snow and ice. The average person can easily outrun someone in full gear. Do with that info with you what you will.
I mean, they're having a real tough time getting guys to be able to run 1.5 miles in 15 minutes.
They had to
they had to
change their
remove
fitness
the sit-up.
requirements. Yeah.
They had removed the sit-up from the
Yeah.
fitness requirements
having a
because
hard
too many
time
people were
finding people who
failing.
can read.
Yeah.
Literally. Like they're failing open book. There's a story in Raw Story about that. They're failing open
Yeah.
book tests because they can't read.
I'm shocked to hear that.
The amazing Grando, St. Paul listener here. While our part of the Twin Cities hasn't been nearly as bad as Minneapolis, I still live in a big immigrant neighborhood. Last week, the older couple across the street, who we've had a few polite interactions with over the years, dropped off a whistle. They've also been milling about when ICE has been in the area. It's good to know there's good people out there, and we've since exchanged phone numbers. If something starts going down nearby, just start talking to your neighbors, folks. The small things start adding up.
Yep. I mean, time is now.
Meg MCA, some good news out of Tennessee. Savannah's law has gone into effect, making a registry for repeat domestic violence abusers. I would like to see more states adopt this. Yep. Well, it won't affect them getting hired by ICE.
They're going to be recruiting from that list.
Yeah, exactly. It's actually quite helpful. Vault Boy, speaking of running for Congress, for some damn reason I'm getting donation text from Conway. I'm in New Mexico. Please tell y'all in New York have better candidates for the seat. Maybe invite some on so this bozo doesn't get the DP nomination. Conway, I think George Conway. I mean, Cameron Kasky dropped out of that race. What?
Is that Kellyanne Conway's
Ex-husband, who's a Democrat. Yeah. Who's like a resistance influencer. And then there's that guy, Jack Schlossberg. I saw that Jack, with Cameron out of the race, like, I mean, he was the more lefty one. I saw that Jack was at the nurses' strike. So probably better than George Conway. But yeah, that Jerry Nadler seat. It's like, what are we doing here?
not having either of them on?
It doesn't seem like there's a lot of focus on organizing in that district. But, you know, we have great candidates running in Velasquez's old seat. We have an open socialist, Claire Valdez, running for that seat, and she's phenomenal. So you can't get perfect candidates in every race, unfortunately, and that's the
Upper
East
Side
West.
isn't part of the Commie Corridor, or was it West Side?
It's the Upper West Side.
Okay, well, neither of those is in the Commie Corridor.
No, it is a very wealthy and it is a very Zionist district. It went
Very
for
Zionist,
Cuomo. Yeah. Chevron, seeing reports that ICE is targeting Lewiston and Portland, Maine, which isn't far from where I live, large immigrant populations in both cities. I hope that I would never need to use my whistle. Well, start talking to your neighbors. I'm so sorry. Labor Churchill, 1.99 million subscribers on YouTube. So close, folks. I know.
We're about 4,000 some shy. So if you're not subbed,
do it. Cat Leck, Dad, if you kidnap Maduro tomorrow afternoon, I'll make a massive amount of money from work. Of course I'll split it with you. Anyway, I hope you're doing well. Call me back when you can. I'm sure you were very busy on my birthday, so don't worry about missing it. It's Eric, by the way. Haha, I'm sure you knew that. I love you. Okay, bye. Please call me.
if somebody has money to bet on how many people are going to die in Gaza, they also have money to throw at the political system that can ensure that outcome happens.
Sent with lasers. Do we have real data that Gaza lost Harris the election? It seems fairly obvious to me, but I have multiple libs in my life that say polling and not just internal Harris polling said that Gaza was people's 18th concern. I'm having trouble finding undeniable data. There's the, I would look at the IMEU polling, which I know is very specific to this issue, and perhaps they'll dismiss it, but because it is related to like the issues of Islamophobia and things like that. But that's relevant.
One quick response to those are polls of the people who turned out to vote.
Yes.
The people that stayed home, for instance, in Michigan, which is a rather important state, lots of these states, they stayed home because of the Israel stuff. So like all the people citing those polls, they're lying to you or wrong, but have motivated reasons, so they don't want to find out.
Exactly. It depressed turnout. That's the big thing. And two, one, I would show them also, it's anecdotal, but show them Zoran's video when he interviewed Trump supporters when he was assigned to run, by the way, or people that voted for Trump, not Trump supporters, or people that stayed home. But also, they did not release that DNC autopsy for a reason. For a reason. And I'm pretty sure we know what that reason is.
And there is no evidence that it would have hurt them to be on the right side of doing a fucking genocide in front of everyone's face.
Kyle and Brandon Trust Fund says, do you guys think that anti-ICE protests will be viewed as the BLM protests by most Americans in a few years? I'm nervous about how the media will portray these as lawless riots that had a point, but then went too far and now are alienating moderates. Hard not to feel doomed about this. I don't know.
I don't know.
I don't think so.
I don't think that's how you have to think about it. And I don't think like the story of BLM is entirely written. There is an issue. The thing, BLM is frustrating to people because we never got to the real point, which is that our police forces are not democratically accountable in this country. It's less to do with the budgets. That's more of a symptom of the fact that they aren't. And now we're in this position where people are getting murdered in your cities, and it's a question of to whether the feds can be prosecuted for that sort of stuff, because we haven't answered that question. But that doesn't mean I think people like I wouldn't go back and do much beyond saying we need to be more definite in the affirmative agenda beyond just the negative one, and I'm using negative just in an objective sense of saying no to more funding for cops. It's the same thing with immigration. Like we need to have a solution for the real reason people are concerned about immigration now, which is that their wages haven't gone up in 40 years. And like, I mean, I guess I've said enough on that.
Let's just do 19 quickly, and then we'll wrap up just because it's short. We can save Tim Pool for Sam tomorrow. He might enjoy that one.
Oh man.
What, you want to do it?
It's all good. You can save it for
It's
Sam.
just a little longer. I want to.
Yeah,
we're
fine.
nearly at 2:30. I'm sorry. This is a short clip of Mike Pompeo, who was the director of the CIA under Trump for 2 years, I think. Obviously, and then Secretary of State. Yeah. And he and I was just trying to think what he was in the House for I forget
He was
how
the Koch
long.
brothers congressman.
Right. He was in the House for quite a while. So CIA director, then Secretary of State. And he is a Christian Zionist. He looks super different. Ozempic'd out. Ozempic's kind of a miracle drug, it seems like. So not hitting anybody who takes it, but he looks like a different person. I had no idea who this was. But this is him saying the quiet part out loud about what should be written about the victims of the Gaza genocide at a Zionist event in Miami yesterday.
The next generation of young people won't remember October 7th in the same way. That's true in Israel and in America and broadly in the world. And we need to make sure two things. One, it's not that we don't forget. We need to make sure that the story is told properly so that when the history books write this, they don't write about the victims of Gaza, right? They can't. The history, and it's. I should be a little more precise. There were victims in Gaza, right? It's true. There are civilian casualties in every war that's ever been fought, but the victims were the people of the nation state of Israel. That the aggressor was the Iranian regime in the proxy of Hamas, and we need to make sure that the history books reflect that, and that requires each of us every day to talk about it in real time with our children, with our grandchildren, about it in a way that is serious and thoughtful and complete and moral.
And moral.
You'll fail.
When they call it moral over and over again, you gotta wonder, what are they hiding?
I think the cat's out the bag. I think cat's out the bag on stuff like this. We just live in a world where information is a lot more democratized, and all doing stuff like that accomplishes is ensure that people don't trust public education and that they have a reasonable reason for why they don't trust public education, which just opens the door for conspiracy theorists like Candace Owens to get in there and go like, remember how you couldn't trust what was in your textbook because it was obviously lies? You can trust me instead. And so I think what's frustrating about people, not just like Mike Pompeo, but anyone who engages in this kind of work to put obvious lies in education or like put these lazy narratives out as the face of our institutions, it just weakens institutions so much, right? And the liberal solution of kind of just pretending like it's not happening just ensures that the only time people hear that it's happening is from conspiracy theorists or people who have nefarious reasons for why they're broaching this particular issue with this institution.
Yeah,
it's amazing that he said like we got to make sure they don't write about the victims of Gaza, and then he realized that he said that, but then followed it up with a more, I guess, a savvy way of saying, no, it's not like they don't exist. It's just that we really don't care about them. I mean, that was just like that's really what he said. And the idea that like you're gonna sit down with your children and grandchildren, like there have been countless wars, attacks, acts of terror, all throughout history, all around the globe, and the idea that to them this is one that you, a U.S. citizen and American, deems influential enough on your life to sit down and talk with your kids about it. I'm sorry, this was just not for Americans. This was just not at that level. It just wasn't.
It's also one, I mean, I think that it reminds me of the wall of dead babies, that liberal Zionist woman that talked about the difficulties of getting through to young children.
Michelle Obama's advisor on anti-Semitism.
Right, to talk about the state of Israel and how it was such an inconvenience that people were seeing all these dead babies in order to promote their narrative. And there's no introspection as to like, you see that as an obstacle, not that the actions are creating the dead babies, but that the dead babies are the inconvenience for the narrative that you're trying to perpetuate. It just gives away the whole game that this is about lying and building an alternative narrative to the facts. But it reminds me of like, I was parsing through my copy of the People's History of the United States by Howard Zinn the other day, and the overarching thesis of that being about like how history is written and it being written by the victors and also erasing the struggle, the pushback, the rebellions like slave rebellions or some of the harsher conditions that say settlers faced in the United States when they came here. The genocide, of course, of the Native Americans that gets papered over. And that was that was available to people, to the victors, to the writers of history when we didn't have cell phone cameras, when we didn't have social media. But that's not available to them anymore. So they still want to do the same thing that historians have done, or maybe not, I shouldn't blame historians, but the popularized history has done in the West for decades and decades, centuries, erasing the struggle and of marginalized people, but they don't have the ability to do so, to manipulate people into not believing their lying eyes. And so what they're doing it through right now is basically extensive state repression, censorship, and control.
You know, they don't have control of the narrative anymore. And I think your point about how history is represented is especially important, because it's especially important when talking about the history and how we conceptualize genocides in our recollection of the formation of Western states. Like, you know, Israel as a Western project wants you to just accept that the genocide they're conducting is a natural, necessary part of like Western development, because it has been for colonial states in the past. It was for the United States of America. And that's how we represent, you know, except for in the wokest of classrooms, oftentimes we represent the genocide of Native Americans as like a necessary evil in one form or another. We equivocate, we prevaricate, we hide certain things, we valorize people who conducted the genocide, and we just treat it as though all sides. Yeah, with something that we have to treat as though it was necessary because it resulted in America, and America is inherently good. And if something, you know, results in the inherently good state of America, then it can't have been all that bad. And that's the underlying logic that Israel wants you to draw on when you understand what they're doing right now. Not something that happened 350 years ago that you kind of half remember learning about in your classroom, but something that you're watching happen on like your phone right now. And we can't say what people will remember in 100 years if we're all still around then. But for the foreseeable future, people are going to conceptualize it the way they've been conceptualizing it, as a genocide, because people have not stopped talking about it that way. It's broadly accepted now, and they're just, you know, their back is against the wall in this particular issue.
Yep.
It's a failure of Jewish parents also, and this is the same in any sort of groups where you have a big distance between the younger folks and the older folks. But there was this piece here, put this up, Brian. The Free Press had a piece. Jewish parents are shocked, confused, and upset by their children's radical politics, which is just not wanting to support Israel. They wondered if they should have parented differently. Did their children get enough Jewish education? Were they brainwashed by their elite private schools? Where did they go wrong? Quote, maybe I failed in the sense that the kids didn't go to Israel enough, a 63-year-old physician in Greenpoint, Brooklyn told me. He said his daughter, a civil rights attorney, holds anti-Zionist views and refused to vote for the former New York governor Andrew Cuomo due to his alleged sexual harassment. It would have been better if they went more just to see the lies they've been told. You failed. You should listen to your fucking daughter.
Exactly. All right, gonna read some IMs and then we will get out of here, folks.
I think it's pretty amazing that you would call you know, you're parenting a failure because your kid decided not to vote for a sex offender. That's amazing.
Like, the truth is he succeeded and just can't realize it because he's too beholden to nationalism of Israeli nationalism. Like, you should be proud of that woman.
Or
it's disgusting that you're not. And going to the fucking Free Press to talk about how you wish you centered Israel more.
Well, I mean, I think it's pretty cruel to speak about your kids to the press, to the media for some reason, but it seems like cruelty towards children, even their own, is a Zionist value.
Step back from the nationalism. Get a fucking grip.
Dr. Anthony Felci, Matlack's frequent reminder that Christopher Columbus was prosecuted in his own time is a great counter-argument to any lib who wants to talk about how the crimes of history are somehow different than today, or that one genocide is different than the other, rather than that they're almost always products of colonialism and capitalist exploitation and violence.
Yep.
Protector of Frogs says it's also important to start saying what is happening in the wrong with protesters is happening in Minneapolis and other places of ICE crackdown, the suppression of speech and violent government. Call from Little Rock. Let's do revisionist history in real time on our grandkids' behalf. We have to write in books what really happened to combat all the videos they will see of children being blown up. They will trust us.
You will disgrace yourself and alienate yourself from your children for the state of Israel. Get a grip.
Many psychologists. Oh, sorry.
I was gonna say that's what all high control groups want you to do. They want you to alienate yourself from your social groups because it makes you more zealot, and or you are able to turn them. So like it's what we see for all high control groups, which a lot of patriot or ultra nationalist groups are. We don't treat them that when they're in the West and they're promoting like the ethno nationalist state of Israel or military industrial complex, but they alienate themselves. MAGA people alienate themselves for the exact same reasons from their children every day.
Yep. Many psychologists, Sweet Mercy, I love you all so much. Thank you for your honest, ongoing, compassionate coverage of Minneapolis. We can feel the love and support from the whole MR fam. Minnesota Lutherans are harder than we look and will continue to hang tough. Please don't forget about us in the continuous onslaught of heartbreaking news. Left is best. Appreciate that. And absolutely, we will keep on the story. Chase from Charleston. Speaking of cop accountability, I saw a cop run a red light today and I just thought, what can I ever do about that? Reporting it would go nowhere. Cop accountability is a problem from the bottom to the top. I remember I saw that. I was maybe a kid, like 12 or something. I saw a cop turn on his lights to run a red light, and I said to a family member, I said, like, ugh, typical, like they don't have anywhere to be, and they got really mad at me. I remember thinking,
oh, really?
I'll tell you who the family member was later. But I mean, there's just little moments like that. There are still people like that, and it's just deferential to authority in that way. I can't understand it, but that's how it goes. Protect. Oh, I read that one. All right, 3 more. Is this me? Is George Conway a Democrat? He's one of the founders of the Lincoln Project. I think he's now one. I don't care.
I mean, it's irrelevant to us. I mean,
yeah.
That's sad.
I don't like that crop of candidates in that race, but not much I can do. Dmitry Medvedev. I recommend the book The Plot to Kill King by William Pepper. Pepper was a friend of Dr. King's, and the book makes it pretty clear who pulled the trigger. I don't want to spread conspiracy theories, so warning ahead, it is Memphis police sharpshooter Frank Strasser. I mean,
William Pepper is the one who he wrote the piece that got MLK to go against the Vietnam War and talk about it. I forget what the speech was, but we'll play it on Monday. And then he was the sort of one of the lead investigative journalists on the assassination, and eventually convinced Coretta Scott King that there was a conspiracy to kill MLK and cover it up.
Oh, was Pepper the James Earl Ray's lawyer?
Yes, I believe he served as. There's something
because
with that.
There's also that
yes, he was an
podcast
attorney.
I
yes.
listened to. Yes. Okay. Yeah. All right. And the final I am of the day. Kowalski from Nebraska. No calls again? All right, but you're only delaying the inevitable existential farm report. In all seriousness, folks, just remember things have seemed a bit hopeless in the 1850s with the passage of the Fugitive Slave Act and lawless figures black bagging any black man they saw north of Mason-Dixon. History remembers the public who fought them in every town and every city as heroes until the inevitable climax of the Civil War, where in the end, liberty wins. Appreciate that.
Yep, we'll win.
Thank you all so much, Brandon Binder, Ryan, and Matt. We will see you tomorrow.
It might take all the strength I got to get to where I want, but I know somehow I'm gonna get there. I wasn't looking when I just got caught between the truth and the lie.